Baek Mujin, Master of the North Sea. Ice Palace had broken through to the profound realm before even reaching the age of 20, a man possessing extraordinary powers. Yet who would have guessed he would fall deeply in love with a young noble lady? Their love story at first seemed destined for beauty. However, life was not so rosy. Their burning love was forbidden by the young lady's parents. Despite this, she was determined to leave home for him, enraging her father to the point where he drew his sword and sent his own daughter to meet her ancestors. Upon learning this, Baek Mujin, consumed by longing and torment, led his forces to unify the Central Plains over 4 long years. Then one day, the intertwined love flower, which had long since withered, suddenly bloomed anew. Through this, he knew his beloved had been revived, and so he began to wander everywhere to bring the woman he loved back. The journey of Baek Mujin, Master of the North Sea Ice Palace, to find his wife officially began here. The story opens on a battlefield stained crimson with blood, where corpses lay scattered across the ground. Pools of blood were everywhere. Amidst this brutal scene, standing among the bodies, was a young man of small stature. Yet in his hand, he wielded a sword that looked larger than himself. Gazing at the enemy before him with a sharp glint in his eyes, he gritted his teeth and wondered, "These bastards, when did they get here?" Before him stood a group of figures clad entirely in mysterious black. They watched him, long swords in hand, poised to strike at any moment. Suddenly, one of the black-robed men lunged, attacking those nearby. Sharp, brutal sword strikes flashed out in an instant, under a sky pouring rain, as if to douse the world. Immediately after, one charged straight towards the young man, yelling, "You accursed barbarian spawn! You're dead for sure!" He thought this was game over. But no, with a flash of his aura, a single horizontal slash from his sword easily felled the black-robed attacker. The man, struck by the unexpected counterattack, clutched his wound in pain and fell to the ground. The young man, shouldering his massive sword, looked at the enemies before him and thought to himself that no matter how many he cut down, he could never kill them all. With this thought, he ground his teeth in bitter frustration. Those damn Martial Alliance scoundrels! A truce was signed, and yet they pull a stunt like this on us. Damn it all. Looking up at a tall building, he silently vowed, "But I will definitely protect my lord." Thinking this as if infused with new strength, he encouraged those around him. "Everyone hold on. Reinforcements are coming." The others responded in unison. "Yes." The mention of reinforcements was like a final saving torch, but the enemy's utterly cruel words doused all hope like a bucket of cold water. "You mean these wretches?" As he finished speaking, severed heads rained down from somewhere. Seeing the falling heads, the young man knew in his heart that all hope was truly lost. "Our reinforcements have been annihilated." Seeing his support so cruelly slain by the enemy, he couldn't believe his eyes. How could this be? Then he looked closely at the insignia on their clothes, and his analysis began. His eyes widened in horror as he thought, could that person be? Powerful footsteps approached. The one arriving was none other than the leader of the Martial Alliance. One sword shakes the heavens, Dam Cheon-hak. Looking at Dam Cheon-hak's imposing back, the young man felt somewhat suppressed by that shadow. "Is this your true power?" Dam Cheon-hak looked down at the young man as if he were a mere child and spoke, "The power of ice and snow is indeed formidable. Truly, your reputation is well-deserved." But then a golden glint flashed in his eyes. Dam Cheon-hak enunciated each word. "You dare to fight against us? Truly important characters are always immortal." And despite facing the imposing figure, the young man showed no fear and laughed arrogantly. "You're that confident? You struggled this much just encountering the Snow Ice Squad. If you were to clash with the Snow Shadow Squad, personally trained by our lord, you'd all be wiped out." The black-robed figures standing around, seeing him insult their master, grew so enraged that veins bulged on their foreheads. They roared, "How dare you cut out his tongue!" While Dam Cheon-hak merely stared at him, his subordinates were already incensed on their master's behalf. Their eyes blazed and they gripped their weapons as if ready to tear him apart. "You lowly barbarian! How dare you be insolent to our lord! You will absolutely not be forgiven! You won't leave here alive today! Prepare to die!" In this critical situation, with both sides ready to clash at any moment, a voice called out from a distance, "Wait!" A beautiful girl stepped forward. She clasped her hands tightly, speaking hesitantly. "Please wait a moment. Please stop." Hearing the girl's voice, the young man immediately turned his head and cried out in alarm, "Hwa-yun, Miss Hwa-yun!" Seeing his concern for her, she quickly waved her hand and said with a smile, "It's okay. Don't worry about me." Seeing that the one who stepped out was a delicate young woman, Dam Cheon-hak, acting like a perfect gentleman, ordered his subordinates, "All of you fall back." Obeying their master, all the black-robed figures surrounding them stepped back. Looking at his disobedient daughter, he also felt a degree of displeasure and scolded her, "Not only were you deceived and bewitched by these monkeys, but you also ran away from home. Never in my life have I been so humiliated, but everyone makes mistakes. As your father, I'll give you one last chance. You've always been intelligent, so I know you'll make the right choice for yourself." Hearing her father, the girl glanced toward the soldiers standing bewildered behind her and said, "If I return, will you let them live?" Father. Dam Cheon-hak remained silent, merely staring at his daughter with furious eyes. Hwa-yeon, now with no other choice, could only compromise with her father. I understand. I'm sorry, father. The atmosphere suddenly tensed as no one there uttered a word. Raising his sword, his eyes showing he had his answer, Dam Cheon-hak said coldly, Very well then. As if realizing something, the young man rushed forward, shouting as he ran, Dam Cheon-hak, you bastard! But it was too late. Dam Cheon-hak's sword had already swung down. A single heartless strike robbed his daughter of her life. The young man roared in agony. No, Dam Cheon-hak coldly proclaimed. From this moment, I no longer have a daughter. My only mission now is to reclaim the soul of the Central Plains, which those barbarians have stolen. Flying Dragon Unit, clean this up for me immediately. Those black-robed figures, swords in hand, charged at the remaining survivors. They lunged like wolves, hunting in the silent night. Perhaps because he was so enraged by Dam Cheon-hak's actions, the young man, even if it meant his life, was determined to defeat him. Get up! Continue to fight for me. After that, the two sides clashed fiercely, the battle, an even match. As for Seo Hwa-yeon, after receiving a sword strike from her father, she did not die immediately. Lying there, she reminisced about their old love and devotion. I should have gone back there. But then she remembered the image of a man smiling gently at her. I'm sorry. I couldn't keep my promise to you. Then the girl's vision blurred, and only darkness remained. The scene shifts to a grand palace enveloped by heavy rainstorms and lightning striking everywhere. Inside the palace, a man sat on a throne, his face dark as he roared, What did you just say? This man was none other than Baek Mujin, master of the North Sea Ice Palace and the protagonist of our story. The subordinate below immediately replied. The members of the Snow Ice Squad, including Grandmaster Baek Mu-kyol, who led them as envoys to conclude negotiations, engaged in battle with the leader of the Martial Alliance and were annihilated. Hearing his subordinate's report, an energy surged from Baek Mujin, sweeping past everyone present. Every single person felt a chill run down their spine. He stood up, his face emotionless, and said in an ice-cold voice, Unforgivable. I will never forgive them. With immense power radiating around him, he gritted out each word. Those bastards. I will eliminate every single one of them. Then he ordered his subordinates to prepare to advance on the Central Plains. Entire army. Listen well. Wipe them out for me. Everyone prepare to attack the Central Plains. The words had barely left his lips when a formidable army mobilized, marching out into the snowy, rainy night. During a harsh, biting winter with snow blanketing the entire region, Dam Cheon-hak, once so powerful, was now exhausted, his body covered in countless wounds. Looking at his subordinates lying lifeless on the ground, he clutched his sword tightly, thinking, Have we been annihilated? Dam Cheon-hak stared straight ahead with eyes full of resentment. My internal energy is depleted. Am I to die here? Feeling as if he had no way out, Dam Cheon-hak pondered for a moment. Finally, he spoke. End it. The master of the North Sea Ice Palace stood before him, a look of despair and confusion on his face. Baek Mujin asked, Why? Why did you kill her? What was the reason? Hearing his question, Dam Cheon-hak laughed loudly. Ha ha ha. Nonsense. Why ask something so obvious? Then he gritted his teeth and said, My daughter fell in love with a barbarian like you. Did she deserve to live? Baek Mujin was silent for a moment, then he raised his hand, gathering a surge of power. Though he knew his life was likely at its end, Dam Cheon-hak still managed a conceited smile. That's right. You may have conquered the land, but you will never have what you desire most. Ha 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 ha. As he finished speaking, a blinding surge of power, like a sword, pierced through him. While not yet completely losing consciousness, he thought in agony. Is this how it all ends? Before his eyes closed, he remembered the time when Hwa-yeon was tiny, sitting on his shoulders, holding a pinwheel. Then, when she grew up, she left home to follow a man. Each memory replayed like a slow-motion tape, all the joyful and sorrowful moments between father and daughter. Why did you betray your father to follow a barbarian? Thinking of the moment his daughter packed her things and eloped with him, his eyes filled with bloodshot veins and unquenchable rage. How furious I was. What was so special about that man that you liked him? I cannot accept it. Finally, Dam Cheon-hak fell to the cold ground that night. The death of Dam Cheon-hak, leader of the Martial Alliance, marked the end of the bloody 6-year war. It was also when Baek Mujin, master of the North Sea Ice Palace, the living legend of the North Sea, became the undisputed supreme powerhouse of the Central Plains. Yet Baek Mujin was utterly indifferent. He merely gazed silently at the moonlight faintly shining through the layers of clouds. Returning to his palace, Baek Mujin looked at the flower in a vase and felt sorrowful. Now I only have this flower left. He recalled the time when the young lady Seo Hwa-yeon was by his side. While he was working, Hwa-yeon ran in excitedly holding a flower pot. Look, the intertwined love flower has finally bloomed. The intertwined love. Flower, the flower that only blooms when two people truly love each other. Yes, that's right. Seo Huayan moved to the verge of tears, looked at the beautifully blooming flower in her hands, and continued, her voice choked with emotion. I never doubted your feelings, though I was very sad that the intertwined love flower wouldn't bloom. But now it's blooming so brilliantly. With that, she raised her hand to wipe her tears. It wasn't just my one-sided love. You truly love me too. Looking at Seo Huayan's adorable appearance, Baek Mujin couldn't help but pull the small girl into his embrace and whisper, Of course, besides you. Who else could I love more, my silly little girl? The protagonist recalled that moment holding her in his arms, and Baek Mujin felt a little solace, thinking to himself, I'm so grateful for this flower. Thanks to it, I could see Huayan so happy. Returning to the present, looking at the intertwined love flower in his hand, a thought suddenly flashed in Baek Mujin's mind. I must plant intertwined love flowers all over the garden. For you, my Huayan. Baek Mujin, as if lost, spoke slowly. No matter how hard I try, I can't forget her. While he was lost in thoughts of her, the flower suddenly bloomed brilliantly, startling him immensely. What? The intertwined love flower has bloomed again. How can this be? He urgently called out, Mu Yong. His subordinate immediately responded. At your service, Lord. Both surprised and bewildered, he ordered. Find someone to explain this to me quickly. Even if you have to search high and low, find that person. Mu Yong immediately obeyed and departed. A few days later, it was another beautiful day. In the palace, countless scholars, who seemingly knew everything under the heavens, had gathered at the North Sea Ice Palace. One of them spoke with confusion. Why has the North Sea Divine Palace summoned us here? While everyone present in the grand hall was discussing animatedly, a voice came from behind. Please step outside. What, hearing the voice, the vast majority of people felt a little apprehensive and fearful. Oh heavens, what are we to do? A voice seemed to echo from the sky. Why? Who knows? Let's go take a look. Truly, no one would explain what had happened. After taking a few more steps, everyone was utterly astonished when before their eyes, a garden of intertwined love flowers bloomed glowing brightly, a dreamlike scene unfolding. One among them approached the flowers and said, Having lived to this age, this is the first time I've seen a garden so full of intertwined love flowers. To see even one in a lifetime is rare enough. It's truly strange. This flower is inherently rare. Some live their entire lives without ever seeing one, yet here there are so many. Looking at the blooming flower, he said, Ooh. True love is etched on the petals, as if embroidered. No mistake, this is indeed the intertwined love flower. While everyone was mesmerized by the flowers, Baek Mujin appeared from behind them, smiled, and asked, Do you like flowers? Those behind him turned and asked, Of course, this flower is incredibly rare and hard to find, but who might you be, sir? He didn't answer, just smiled lightly and then spoke, I am Baek Mujin, the master of this garden. Hearing him speak, everyone present turned pale and stammered, What Baek Mujin? The supreme powerhouse of the Central Plains. Why is he here? Before they could recover from their shock, the protagonist continued. As you can see, this garden is full of intertwined love flowers. Looking at the flowers, he continued, My beloved and I made them bloom with our love. But when she died, the flowers died too. Yet I don't understand why a few days ago they revived. Hearing this, the people there were as stunned as if they'd been shot. Revived. The love flower. Truly revived. Baek Mujin replied, Yes, I saw it very clearly with my own eyes. Hearing this, even those with many years of life experience couldn't help but discuss animatedly. This is truly bizarre. I've never heard of such a thing. Suddenly, an old man in the crowd spoke up. However, there is one possibility. Before the old man could say more, Baek Mujin leaned in close, his grim face making the old man break out in a cold sweat. What possibility? The old man was silent for a moment, then continued to explain. That is, your beloved has been reincarnated into a new body, meaning she has revived. She is likely somewhere in this world. Hearing the old man, Baek Mujin excitedly asked, Really? The old man replied immediately, If not, there is no other explanation for why the intertwined love flower would bloom again. Other than that, it's very difficult to explain why the intertwined love flower has come back to life. After hearing this, a spark of hope ignited in Baek Mujin's mind. Revived. So I have hope, silently questioned himself. I succeeded in unifying the entire Central Plains, fulfilling the long-held wish of the North Sea. But in my heart, I only feel empty. Remembering his beloved, his sadness deepened. As the North Sea prospered, my longing for her only grew. I lost her and found no purpose to continue living. With an imperious tone, he asked the old man, Then how do I find her? Speak quickly. The old man stammered, gesturing wildly. People say that the intertwined love flower emits a faint light when two lovers are in the same place. When the Lord finds the young lady, the flower will glow. Remembering the flower Seo Huayan once held, he recalled that the intertwined love flower she carried had glowed. I didn't pay much attention at the time, but it surely held some secret. And the old man, noticing Baek Mujin's ignorance, suggested, "Carrying a living flower is very difficult. We must craft the intertwined love flower into a gem to carry with you. It will be more convenient." Hearing the old man's confident answer, he happily agreed. "Good. Then I will entrust everything to you. We will depart in 10 days. You have until then to prepare." And then, wanting to show off his wealth, he tossed out a gold coin and said in a cool tone, "If everything goes smoothly, I will reward you with 100 million taels of gold." Seeing this, they were all immediately astonished and asked, "Are you serious, sir?" He replied wearily, "Yes, I have matters to attend to, so please excuse me. A gentleman's word is his bond." He walked into his room feeling happy as he went. "I thought I would never see it again, but now I have hope." Looking at the light shining through the window, Baek Mujin told himself, "I won't let it slip away. No matter where you are, even in hell, I will find you. So you must wait for me, Hwayeon. Wait for me." Immediately after, Baek Mujin boarded a ship and traveled everywhere to find his beloved, his heart solely devoted to her. In the ship's cabin, the protagonist stood with his back turned, looking at a map spread open on the table. He pointed to each territory on the map and said, "Not here, this place either." Holding a pen, his expression turned grim. "So only Hainan remains." Remembering 3 years ago when he began his journey, Baek Mujin thought, "It's been 3 years since I started this journey, but I still haven't found her anywhere in the Central Plains." During this time, he had broken through from the transformation realm to the profound realm and had undergone mortal shedding and bone cleansing twice. With a steadfast gaze and determination, Baek Mujin seemed to affirm that Seo Hwayeon was definitely in Hainan. Leaning lightly on the gem made from the intertwined love flower, he recalled a time before when they were still together. The protagonist had been angry when he questioned Seo Hwayeon. "Why do you have to go? Why can't you stay? You don't necessarily have to go there." Noticing the worry in his eyes, she had gently explained, "This negotiation session will also be attended by my father. If I am there too, he will surely to some extent reconsider our relationship." Despite this, Baek Mujin had still felt it could be a trap, but Seo Hwayeon had remained steadfast, believing she could achieve something. "Just this once, I want to trust my father. Please, I beg you allow me to go." Seeing Seo Hwayeon so determined, the protagonist had pondered for a moment. Finally, he had sighed and conceded to her wish, "All right, but if anything unusual happens, you must return." Seo Hwayeon, looking joyful, reached into her robes as if searching for something and said, "Take this. It's a keepsake from my late mother." She continued, "This bracelet has the power to lead me back to its owner. This bracelet will always guide you back to me." Handing the bracelet to Baek Mujin, she smiled brightly and said, "Don't worry, I will never leave you." Thinking of this, Baek Mujin berated himself. I should have stopped her at all costs. While he lay there, lost in thoughts of the past, people outside were shouting that a storm was approaching. "The wind is so strong." Those outside screamed in fear. "Everyone, hold on tight, grab onto the ship's hull, tie yourselves down with ropes, try to secure the ropes tightly." Hearing the commotion outside, Baek Mujin finally stepped out. With a cold, emotionless voice, he asked, "Why has a storm with such strong winds suddenly appeared?" While he was still dazed and uncomprehending, a massive wave crashed down, about to capsize the ship. Without a moment to think, Baek Mujin immediately cast a protective chi barrier. He stood in the middle of the ship slowly, using his own power to create a protective field around himself. As for his followers, he ignored them. Those unfortunate souls were swept far away by the waves, their pitiful screams accompanying them. The wave shattered everything, flinging a mother and child to the very edge of the ship. Though Baek Mujin was devoted in love, he still possessed immense compassion for the people. Seeing them in peril without much thought, he cast a spell to save them, void-grasping object. A great power rushed out to protect them from the storm. The ship before them also temporarily stabilized. The protagonist silently rejoiced, for now this will do. He thought everything was fine, but no, the fierce waves continued to crash. The remaining people on the ship turned deathly pale. "It's coming again." A huge wave was thundering towards them. Someone shouted, "Hold on tight, don't let go. Keep trying." Seeing that the ship seemed unstable, Baek Mujin had only one option. He rushed into the storm to stop it. His eyes filled with determination and resolve. "I must freeze the rushing water." A blast of cold air swept over the people on the ship, causing them to panic. "What is this? Why is there icy chi here? It's so cold, so cold." Amidst the raging waves, he shouted, "Ice seal motion." While he was exerting all his strength to stop the storm, the necklace around his neck suddenly emitted a soft light. The light pierced through the storm, shining forward, illuminating Baek Mujin entirely. The protagonist squinted, but still tried to see what was happening. Suddenly, he was drawn up into the air by that strange light and vanished quickly. The old man, who had witnessed the entire event, collapsed onto the deck, exclaiming in astonishment, "Impossible! What in the devil's name is happening?" After Baek Mujin disappeared, the sky turned clear and the tsunami also vanished, leaving only the survivors looking up at the sky trying to find the image of their palace master. As for Baek Mujin, when he opened his eyes after disappearing, he looked around bewildered and wondered, "Where am I? It's so cramped. Am I in a carriage? Why am I here? I was clearly in the middle of the sea fighting a storm." While he was lost in thought, a shout came from outside. "Is it over there?" Looking out, the scene was utter chaos. A swarm of giant flies was chasing the people there. In a thicket, 2 girls were hiding their faces filled with fear. The others outside tried to reassure them, "We will definitely save you both." While everyone was anxiously wondering what to do, the carriage suddenly exploded. They exclaimed in confusion, "That's the most luxurious carriage." After the dust and smoke gradually cleared, a hand exuding powerful chi appeared. Baek Mujin stepped out confidently, remarking, "It seems this is some forest in the Central Plains." Turning to look at the people here, he silently surmised, "They are foreigners. That means I'm quite far from the Central Plains. It seems I was swept quite far away." Looking at the swarm of flies approaching each with terrifying blood-red eyes, Baek Mujin was startled, having never seen something so ugly and enormous. The giant swarm of flies kept rushing towards him, and the protagonist stood there dumbfounded, not understanding what was happening. Very quickly, a fly lunged right at the protagonist. He exclaimed in confusion, "Color woodman and these flies. What's going on?" Glancing at the fly that had just whizzed past his face, he didn't hesitate and passed 100 Ice God Palm. The fly, having barely flown a short distance, was frozen into a block of ice and then immediately exploded, much to the awe of the onlookers. Baek Mujin looked at the swarm of flies with a disdainful gaze and said, "These insignificant flies dare to attack me." He raised his hand, concentrating his power into his palm, then gathered momentum and shot high into the air. He flew up and counterattacked the swarm of flies, causing the entire swarm to freeze in midair. Immediately after, boom, 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 they exploded into dust in an instant, to the utter amazement of everyone present. Baek Mujin coldly said, "For such lowly creatures, this is enough." Witnessing the scene before them, all the local people stared wide-eyed in astonishment. They themselves couldn't believe this extraordinary event. The fact that Baek Mujin could annihilate all the flies here was like a miracle. Even the youngest girl in the group found it hard to believe. Baek Mujin stood watching their stunned and surprised reactions with some curiosity. Afterward, the local people gathered and began to converse, but they spoke in their own language, leaving the protagonist completely clueless. Then the leader of the group approached to introduce himself. "I am Joel Edmund, master of the merchant caravan." However, he still spoke in his own language, leaving Baek Mujin bewildered. He asked, Seeing this, the man bowed to show his respect to Baek Mujin and said, "Thank you very much for saving our merchant guild. May I know the esteemed name of this magic swordsman?" Watching the man bow and speak, the protagonist vaguely guessed that he was thanking him. Though he didn't understand anything, he replied, "I'm sorry, but I don't understand what you're saying. Does anyone here speak the language of the Central Plains?" The moment the question was asked, the surrounding atmosphere fell silent. Everyone looked at him as if he were a strange creature from another planet who had just landed. Seeing everyone turning to look back and forth, Baek Mujin scratched his head in confusion, thinking to himself, "It seems they have no freaking idea what I'm saying." Approaching their group, Baek Mujin tried to explain in vain, "I'm asking if anyone here knows the language of the Central Plains." However, the man still looked at him with an utterly confused expression. Just then, someone from the merchant caravan ran up to report something which surprised Edmund. Meanwhile, the protagonist stood behind them trying to figure out how to communicate with everyone. He thought to himself, "Damn it, how am I supposed to explain this to them?" The person handed Edmund a rather exquisite ring, and then a memorable scene unfolded before the protagonist's eyes. Edmund held the ring in his hand, then began to chant, "Translate," and transformed. Watching him, Baek Mujin was as shocked as if he were watching a monkey waving its arms and legs. After putting on the ring and finishing his transformation, the two could now communicate. Edmund cleared his throat to get his voice ready and then said cheerfully, "Can you understand me now, sir?" Edmund certainly knew how to surprise people. Baek Mujin, utterly flabbergasted, replied, "You can suddenly speak the language of the Central Plains fluently because of the power of this ring." Edmund, hearing his question, covered his mouth and chuckled. "That's right. So you were speaking the language of the Central Plains." Then Edmund seriously introduced himself again. "I am Edmund Joel, master of the Joel Merchant Caravan. Thank you very much for saving our merchant guild. May I know the name of this magic swordsman?" The protagonist quickly replied, "I'm not any kind of magic swordsman, but my name is Baek Mujin." Hearing him, Edmund seemed shocked and asked again, You don't know what a magic swordsman is, sir?" Edmund cheerfully explained, "A magic swordsman is someone who can use both swordsmanship and magic, just like you, sir." Although Edmund explained it very carefully, Baek Mujin still asked blankly, "Magic and sorcery. What the hell is that?" Hearing him, Edmund could only look at Baek Mujin with a helpless expression. Recalling the scene from before, he thought to himself, You just froze the snow right in front of us. How can you not know what magic is? Completely speechless, he thought. Where did this guy fall from? Where do I even begin to explain? Baek Mujin, feeling annoyed, leaned in close to him and enunciated each word. I'm asking you. Answer quickly. Seeing Baek Mujin fuming, Edmund trembled, waved his hands in fear, and thought, this guy is truly insane. All right. Since he doesn't know anyway, I just need to give a superficial explanation. Who knows what will happen when a madman gets angry? He said fearfully. I understand. Let me explain. Please, calm down. By that afternoon, as the sun began to set behind the mountain ranges, the two were finally able to sit down by a fire and talk. After listening, Baek Mujin said, so that's how it is. There's something called magic. This world is truly vast. Seeing that he had calmed down, Edmund heaved a sigh of relief. Phew, he's finally calm. Then he asked with curiosity, but what about the Central Plains you mentioned, sir? Baek Mujin was also surprised and shouted, what did you say? You don't know where you are. Don't tell me you guys don't know where you are. The man still asked blankly. What do you mean, sir? Baek Mujin continued, how ridiculous, standing right on the land of the Central Plains and asking where the Central Plains is. Edmund felt that he was truly insane. Nevertheless, Edmund patiently said to Baek Mujin, Sir Magic Swordsman, this is not the Central Plains. We are in a forest leading to the capital of the Drake Kingdom. Although he had explained everything, Baek Mujin was a stubborn person who refused to accept it. He crossed his arms, looked at Edmund annoyedly, and said, Hey, old color woodman. In my entire life, I've never heard anyone call the Central Plains Drake. You don't look that old, but are you already so antiquated that you've become senile? Mr. Edmund sat there, seething with anger, thinking, damn it, who are you calling antiquated? Mr. Edmund was furious, but still replied gently, perhaps fearing that if he got angry, he would smash the entire merchant caravan. Ha ha ha, senile. I'm only 50 years old. I think it's more worrying that you insist on calling this place the Central Plains. Hearing this, the protagonist was quite shocked, but gradually began to accept it. Then he pointed behind him. In that case, we just need to ask the child, who's peeking over there? Seeing the boy step out, Edmund asked worriedly, Leo, why are you here? Beside him, Baek Mujin said, Hey, stinky brat, you answer. Is this place the Central Plains or Drake? Seeing the boy just stay silent made him feel disrespected, and he shouted, Why aren't you answering? Seeing that he was unhappy, Edmund spoke up to explain Leo doesn't understand your language. Then he took off his ring and handed it to him. Here, I'll lend you this ring. Put it on your finger and shout, Translate. While handing the ring to Baek Mujin, he felt a pang of regret, but was determined not to let himself be humiliated by lending a magical artifact to a madman. What a waste. But I can't let him call me antiquated. The protagonist didn't think much of it, put the ring on his hand and shouted, Translate! A circle of characters enveloped him. When it was done, he finally thought happily, I can understand your words now. Very interesting. This dark art is truly formidable. Then he looked at the boy and questioned, Hey kid, what's your name? My name is Leo, the boy quickly replied. Baek Mujin looked at the boy for a moment and then asked, All right, Leo, I'm asking you, is this the Central Plains or Drake? Leo was also confused by his question and asked back, Sir, what is the Central Plains? Then the boy began to explain, This is a forest on the way to Bahan, the capital of the Drake Kingdom. Hearing Leo, Baek Mujin suddenly flew into a rage. What did you say? So you're senile too? Then he turned to Mr. Edmund and questioned, Hey old man, did you tell the child to say that? Hearing the baseless accusation, Edmund angrily stood up and retorted, Not at all. If you doubt it, you can ask all the members of our merchant caravan. Then he calmed down and analyzed everything. Looking at everyone's reactions, it seemed they weren't lying. So this isn't the Central Plains. As if suddenly remembering something, Baek Mujin thought to himself, I just noticed. At that time, I was fighting the storm on the ship, and when I opened my eyes, I was in a carriage. Could it be? I've been transported? Thinking this, he was almost in disbelief, his mouth agape in astonishment. Then he shot up, looking bewildered as if trying to deny his own guess. So I've drifted to another dimension. Looking around, Baek Mujin wondered, so this is Drake City, not the Central Plains. While lost in his thoughts, a light suddenly flashed in the protagonist's chest. He clutched his stomach, writhing in pain, thinking, What's this? Just now I felt something strange in my dantian. Baek Mujin painfully clutched his chest. Beside him, Edmund, unconcerned about his condition, asked, Do you believe me now? Rubbing the painful spot, the protagonist thought, This feeling is too strange. I've never felt it before. Sensing something was amiss, he stood up and ran off, making Mr. Edmund chase after him, asking, Where are you going, sir? It seemed the old man was afraid he would steal the precious ring. As for Baek Mujin, he wanted to check this place out for himself. This pure energy. Walking alone in the dark forest, Baek Mujin found the place very strange. This place is completely different from the central plains. Wanting to observe the surrounding terrain more closely without hesitation, he jumped onto a large rock. Then, from mid-air, he cast a spell creating an ethereal stream of water around himself. Baek Mujin touched his chest, feeling a heart-wrenching pain. Standing in mid-air, he couldn't bear the pen and cried out, "Ah!" looking up at the sky as if lamenting his fate to the heavens. The true chi accumulated in my dantian has doubled. But why on earth did I drift to this place and not the central plains? I want to quickly find Hwayon. Without further thought, he plummeted straight down from the sky, his mind a mess of thoughts, right as he was falling. Oh, what a surprise. The necklace made from the intertwined love flower. The necklace he always wore suddenly emitted a brilliant red light. Could it be because of the light from this necklace? Remembering what Hwayon had once said, this bracelet has the power to return to its owner. If he was transported here, there must be a reason. He thought to himself, then perhaps I was brought here to meet her. Haha, that's right. She's here. At the same time, Baek Mujin landed safely on the ground. By now, night had fallen, blanketing the entire forest. In the darkness, Mr. Edmund sat waiting for Baek Mujin to return, extremely anxious. The old man was afraid he had taken his treasure. He muttered to himself, what happened? Where did that swordsman go? While Baek Mujin was absent, he also took the opportunity to grumble about him a few times. Who knows what kind of person behaves so incomprehensibly? Just as he finished speaking, Baek Mujin returned, startling Edmund. The protagonist cleared his throat and said, "Is everyone here now?" Looking at Mr. Edmund, it seemed that after realizing many things, his expression had softened a bit. Baek Mujin approached Edmund and said, "I have something to do, so I'll be leaving temporarily, but I also have something to ask." "Yes," Edmund replied. Outwardly, he looked calm, but inwardly he was constantly screaming, "Why is he suddenly smiling? It looks terrifying." With a less than friendly expression, Baek Mujin asked, "That kid said this place belongs to Drake City. Is that true?" Edmund replied, "Yes, if we go a little further, we'll reach the capital of this kingdom." Before he could finish, the protagonist interrupted. "Bahan, where is that?" Seeing his ignorance about the capital, the boy who had been standing behind Mr. Edmund suddenly leaned forward, smiling smugly. "You really don't know anything about this place, do you, sir? Do you live on a mountain?" Edmund, seeing the kid's mouth moving faster than his brain, was terrified, afraid that hearing this would make him go mad and send their entire merchant caravan to the afterlife. Not stopping there, the kid continued. "I've heard adults tell stories about eccentrics like you, sir, but this is the first time I've seen one in person." Edmund, sitting next to him, broke out in a sweat. "I can't even stop your mouth in time. You're such a disaster, kid." But contrary to what everyone thought, Baek Mujin not only didn't get angry, but also put on a very friendly smile. "Haha, that's right. I practice martial arts on the mountain. I've just come down to explore a bit, so I don't know anything." Then he fell into deep thought. Bahan, Drake Kingdom. I've never heard of these places. Perhaps if I ask more, this kid will continue talking. Color Woodman. So this must be the land of the Nuang-Di people, huh? As expected, the boy approached again, eagerly saying, "Let me teach you a few things, Sir Swordsman." Seeing the boy's determination, he didn't refuse, but replied indifferently, "All right, okay." The boy turned and ran off, not forgetting to say to Baek Mujin, "Haha, then follow me, uncle." Baek Mujin also ran after him and asked, "But what's your name?" The boy quickly replied, "My name is Luck Fee, sir." "And you, Sir Swordsman, what's your name?" While the two were chatting happily, Mr. Edmund behind them sat in a corner with his arms crossed, thinking to himself, why is he suddenly smiling and talking so affably? It's so hard to understand. That night, Luck Fee began to teach him about the land and the language of the people here. Surprisingly, it turned out this place wasn't a foreign country, but an entirely new world. Looking at the map attentively, Baek Mujin found it quite perplexing. The terrain was strange, and the script was completely different from that of the Central Plains. In this world, not only did races like elves and dwarves live, but there were also other races like merfolk. Among all species, the strongest were creatures called dragons, winged beasts. And there were also some kind of teleportation gates. Lakfi continued to explain about the teleportation gates. Only mages of level 5 or higher can use teleportation gates. They draw a circular magic formation on the ground, chant an incantation, and then they can instantly move to any place they want. The higher their ability, the farther the teleportation distance. Hearing the boy, his head ached. This place also has such incomprehensible magic. But looking around, he silently marveled, how many other wonders does this world hold? Looking up at the sky, Baek Mujin was a little surprised. There are 3 moons here. I can be sure this is a completely different world, one that doesn't exist in the Central Plains. Relying on the necklace around his neck, he thought, "Hwayon, did you summon me here?" While Baek Mujin was reminiscing about his beloved, desperate screams came from a distance. "Sabina! No, don't do that!" Hearing the shouts, he turned to look in that direction. Baek Mujin thought, "What's that noise? Is it over there?" Sabina, also unwilling to show weakness, screamed, "What's wrong with it?" Then she hugged a little girl and shouted, "Don't come near or I'll kill this child." The people around were still trying to calm Sabina's anger. "When we get to the capital, they will definitely treat both of you. There are many mages there. I'll ask for help too. Okay?" "Anne is scared," one of them said. But Sabina, seeing this, did not relent and replied, "Sakli, do you think I'm a fool? Even in the capital, those who know how to heal are rare. And if you do find one, do you know how much it costs?" She screamed. "Once the assassin bug's egg is deeply embedded in my heart, I can turn into a larva at any time. How can it be cured?" Hearing Sabina's convincing words, Sakli didn't know what more to say. At this point, Sabina burst into tears. "Once the egg hatches into a larva, it will tear my heart and Anne's apart." Then she raised a knife, wanting to end it all. "Then, just let me die. At least now my body is still intact." Bayek Mujin, after learning about the situation, was moved by compassion, something he rarely did before. He stepped forward and said, "Wait, I roughly understand the situation." As he spoke, the protagonist began to gather chi in his palm. Instantly, Sabina's sharp knife was in Baek Mujin's hand. He confidently said, "I will save you both, so put that short blade down." At this moment, Sabina was also surprised and asked, "Wait, when did that happen? Do you know healing magic, sir?" Not wanting to waste many words, the protagonist gently said, "Now sit down. I'll try to do it quickly." Mr. Edmund also hurried over. "Sir Swordsman, you also know how to use healing magic. Please save the children." Baek Mujin replied, "I don't know magic. It's just that where I come from, we know how to heal. So for now, everyone, please calm down." Edmund rushed over, grabbed the protagonist's hand and continued in a sincere voice, "I don't have much to offer you, sir, but I will definitely repay you with all my heart." Seeing his enthusiasm, he blocked him with his hand. "I would do it even if you didn't say anything." Then he turned to the people around and said, "I'm starting. All of you step back." Hearing this, Mr. Edmund gestured for those nearby to move back. Bayek Mujin walked behind the two girls and reassured them, "No need to be so tense. It will be quick." He told Sabina and Annie to close their eyes and then began to perform his method. While doing so, he thought, "She said there are bug eggs in their hearts. Is it in this spot?" Suddenly, Baek Mujin's eyes widened when he saw something. The protagonist placed his hands on the backs of the two girls, silently rejoicing. "Ah, found it." From the point of contact, a faint light appeared around Sabina and Annie, surprising everyone around. On this side, Baek Mujin was still concentrating on his examination. The protagonist silently rejoiced. Luckily, the parasitic eggs haven't hatched yet. He could feel the heartbeats of the two girls and breathed a sigh of relief. "Now I just need to control my ki to burn the egg without affecting their hearts." The points of contact on their backs began to glow brightly. It grew stronger and more intense, gradually spreading to their hearts. A moment later, when Baek Mujin removed his hands, Sabina and Anne gasped for breath, panting heavily. Baek Mujin looked at them and casually said, "It's done." The two girls turned around in surprise and asked him loudly, "What? Really?" Baek Mujin didn't answer them, but turned to Edmund and the others standing there and said, "I've destroyed all the parasitic eggs. You can rest assured now, Mr. Edmund, hearing this, replied in astonishment, "Really? So Sabina and Annie are safe and sound?" The boy also quickly approached, asking doubtfully, "Magic Swordsman, is it really over?" In response, Baek Mujin simply nodded and said, "Of course, there are no after effects. They're safe." He turned back to the two girls and said, "There will be no more problems in the future. You don't need to worry," and tearfully thanked him. "Thank you truly. Thank you very much, Magic Swordsman," Sabina continued. "You are our benefactor, sir." The surrounding crowd also bowed their heads in gratitude. "We are truly very grateful to you, sir." After that, Baek Mujin also quickly left. The protagonist walked away exhausted, alone in the cold and gloomy night. He slumped down on the grass beside a large tree, looked up at the night sky and thought, "What a long day." Baek Mujin held the pendant around his neck, a hint of disappointment on his face, and silently mused, "I miss her again today." He looked up at the sky again, where the moon was still shining, wondering when the two of them would be able to reunite. The next morning, the group set off again for Bahan City. Edmund, carrying a heavy load despite having sun protection gear, couldn't help but exclaim tiredly, "Why is it so hot?" Baek Mujin wiped the sweat from his face, smiled and replied casually, It's really hot." Seeing this, the child walking beside him held out a water bottle and said with a friendly smile, "Magic Swordsman, have some water, sir." Seeing this, Baek Mujin didn't hesitate and replied, "Ah, okay, thanks, kid." And he took the water bottle, looked at it, and thought, the water has also gotten hot. Suddenly, a bold idea flashed in his mind. What if I infuse ice-type energy into this? No sooner said than done. Baek Mujin immediately froze the water bottle. As expected, the entire body of the water bottle was instantly frozen. Baek Mujin blissfully enjoyed the cool water. The The child standing beside him spoke with concern. Wow, the water is so hot, yet the magic swordsman gulps it down like that. Are you okay, sir? Baek Mujin, while tilting his head back to drink the now iced water from the bottle, casually replied, the water is cooler now. The child heard something strange and replied, it seems your water is making a strange sound, sir. Just then, the protagonist unexpectedly pressed the cold water bottle against the child's cheek and said softly, Hold it. The child exclaimed, It's so cold! Oh, why is this water so cold? He held the water bottle in surprise and shouted. Seeing this, Baek Mujin simply said, try drinking it. Without hesitation, the child immediately tilted his head back and drank the water. As the cool water flowed down his throat, his face, which had been haggard from the heat, became refreshed. Perhaps these were the coolest drops of water the kid had ever drunk in his life, and it could be so delicious. Looking at the boy's refreshed expression, Baek Mujin smiled and said, It's very cool, right? The boy excitedly said loudly, Sir Magic Swordsman! He then handed him another water bottle, his eyes full of excitement. Can you make this water bottle cold like that too, sir? Baek Mujin thought to himself, This child has also helped me with quite a few things. If I can help him a little, it would be good. Thinking this, he reached out his hand towards the water bottle and emitted a faint light. Instantly, the water bottle in the child's hand froze. He jumped up and down with joy, while Baek Mujin was surprised to see the surrounding people also holding out their water bottles in front of him, saying in unison, Sir Magic Swordsman, please make ice water for us too. Ice water. The children were excited, their eyes shining brightly as they looked at him with admiration. Baek Mujin averted his gaze, feeling a little tired. I can do it, but if I keep indulging them, they'll get carried away. It'll be too troublesome. Suddenly, Edmund clapped a person beside him on the shoulder, laughed loudly, and asked, What's going on here? Why is everyone suddenly shouting like that? Lak Fi cheerfully and quickly replied, Sir, Magic Swordsman is making ice water for me. The others also chimed in, but Edmund cut them off, shouting, What ice water? Edmund bowed his head and then looked up at Baek Mujin, his eyes filled with disbelief. Sir Magic Swordsman. The protagonist casually replied, What's wrong? Edmund held out his water bottle in front of Baek Mujin and said sincerely, I also want to drink ice water. Please make ice water for me too. Baek Mujin was stunned, not knowing what to say, and just replied softly, All right. Give me your bottle. Edmund replied enthusiastically, Yes. He reached out and quickly froze Edmund's water bottle. While doing so, he thought, I should stay here to learn more about this land. Since there's no longer a language barrier, a little ice water should be fine. Edmund gulped down the ice water, not forgetting to thank Baek Mujin, but suddenly his face darkened. He said, Strange. Sir Magic Swordsman, did you create this ice yourself? Baek Mujin replied in surprise, Yes, why? Edmund's eyes lit up. This ice is incredibly delicious. I've tried every kind of cold ice on the continent, but none have tasted like this. You are truly amazing, sir. This flavor is indeed very different. Other types of ice really can't compare. It's wonderful. Baek Mujin couldn't help but ask, but is it also delicious? I just froze the water. How can it taste different? Edmund explained. When creating ice, people usually use the cold attribute of mana in the air to freeze water or accumulate moisture in the air. This process causes impurities from the mana to mix into the ice, affecting the taste. But your ice, sir, is extremely pure, so it's exceptionally delicious. Baek Mujin replied thoughtfully. I understand. The protagonist thought to himself, So that's why everyone reacted so strongly. Now I get it. In that case, let's show off a little more. Just as he was about to show off, suddenly someone urgently said, Magic Swordsman. Baek Mujin was startled and asked, What's wrong? Edmund raised a finger and said joyfully, I have a proposal. A few days later in the capital city. Carry it carefully, the man with glasses shouted at the people carrying barrels of water behind him. Bring it behind the warehouse. At the same time, Baek Mujin was preparing countless barrels of water. With just a wave of his hand, all that liquid turned into sparkling ice cubes. A large amount of ice was made in just an instant. Seeing this, the crowd standing around him also clapped and laughed. Sir Magic Swordsman is so amazing! Hooray, hooray! He pondered thoughtfully, even as the shouts of, Hurry up! From the crowd still echoed in his ears. A few days ago, after hearing Edmund Joel's proposal, he had been so annoyed that veins bulged on his forehead as he asked, What do you mean you want to restore your merchant guild by selling the ice I make? Seeing the fierceness on his face, Edmund could only avert his eyes and stammer in reply, Yes, roughly like that. And then he recalled Edmund's words that fourth circle mages could create ordinary ice but were too arrogant and made low-quality ice. So Edmund suggested they target a niche market. He thought to himself, no wonder he kept talking about cool ice. He had a scheme from the beginning. Although he felt Edmund had no ill intentions and just wanted to restore his merchant guild, he still didn't want to do it for free, so he decided to negotiate. Thinking this, he arrogantly said, 7-3 split. This surprised Edmund. He said, What? Beck Mujin explained. Since I'm the one making the ice and you're just selling it, I'll take 70% of the profit and you'll take 30%. Edmund's face fell slightly. He thought 7-3 split ice is always in high demand, so this proposal isn't bad. He thought resolutely, then held up 3 fingers towards him and said, "To sell ice, I not only need transport carts, but also workers to pull the carts and mages to keep the ice from melting. The initial costs are quite high. If you could concede a little." While Edmund was still making his offer, Beck Mujin interrupted. "Then 6-4. You get 4. The words immediately startled Edmund. "So fast? Why agree so easily?" Then Edmund also took out a blank piece of paper, placed it on the ground, and said softly, "All right, let's sign the contract." Ending his reminiscence, he glanced around the hall, thinking to himself, "I agreed because this seems like a good place to learn about this world. But the business is growing faster than expected." He sat on a chair watching the bustling surroundings. Suddenly, footsteps ran up. The man with glasses and brown hair tied neatly behind his head pushed open the wooden door forcefully and called out, "Mr. Edmund, please come out for a moment, sir." And the man panted as he spoke, "Could you come out for a moment, sir?" This made both him and Edmund bewildered, wondering, "What's wrong?" Right in front of the store, a crowd had gathered at the counter, creating a noisy scene. A woman said loudly, "I heard they sell ice candy here." Then 2 men continued, "Sell us some, I'm An from Naran City. I came here to do business with the Zorel Merchant Guild." Seeing the chaotic crowd, Edmund could only raise his voice to intervene. "Everyone calm down, everyone. Please line up. Line up." But in his heart, he thought they wouldn't listen. At this moment, someone's voice rang out with 2 words, "Order," causing the crowd to wince in pain and freeze. One person cried out, "There's a voice in my head." Edmund, as if seeing a savior, turned to look at him, his voice pleading, "Magic Swordsman." He coldly said, "All of you shut up. If you keep making noise, I'll kick you all out." "Got it." Seeing this, they could only reply in fear, "Yes," to every word. At this moment, Edmund Joel had an opening to interject and began to speak. "Our merchant guild only sells wholesale. If you want to buy small quantities, we currently cannot sell. In the future, we might sell retail, but for now, it's not possible." Hearing this, the woman said resentfully, "What? But we came all this way. Aren't you being a bit unreasonable?" The man beside her also spoke up, "Can't you sell us a little?" But then he glared at them, making them turn their heads and leave in fear, cursing, "Damn it! This trip was useless to go back empty-handed." Beck Mujin watched their retreating backs, waved cheerfully, and said, "Go slowly." Meanwhile, Edmund, standing beside him, focused on his work, saying, "Now the rest of you, please line up here." The other 3 stood in line. They introduced themselves one after another. A handsome man with an eye patch over his left eye smiled and said, "I'm from the Emag Merchant Guild." Next, an elderly man, impeccably dressed, said seriously, "I am Benjamin Stewart of the Count Slave family." Finally, a person with dark skin and hair extended a hand and introduced himself politely. "Allow me to introduce myself. I am from Arista." Hearing this, Edmund Joel had a thought. The Magi Merchant Guild is one of the top 10 guilds on the continent. The prestigious Count Slave family of the kingdom, along with other noble families. In his heart, he thought, "I knew I could make a lot of money, but who would have guessed I'd be this lucky?" Then he looked at him, who was yawning beside him. With gratitude, he thought, "It's all thanks to Sir Magic Swordsman. Although the Merchant Guild hasn't fully recovered without Sir Magic Swordsman, we wouldn't have had this opportunity." Thinking this, he smiled and said to him, "Sir Magic Swordsman, why don't you rest for a while?" Beck Mujin replied, "Is my task over?" He replied, "Yes, I can handle the rest. Please rest, sir." Then Hayek Mujin walked towards the door, turned to greet him, and said, "All right, then I'm counting on you." Although he felt sorry for Sir Magic Swordsman, he watched him leave and thought, "To avenge my parents and sisters who died unjustly, I must fully restore the Merchant Guild. I must revive my merchant caravan at all costs and take revenge on the Duke who used the Akasa Merchant Guild to destroy my family." He thought again, "Until then, I will never give up. So please cooperate with me until then, Sir Magic Swordsman." Edmund Joel silently promised, "When I succeed, I will definitely repay you." Meanwhile, Beck Mujin had reached his bed, flopped down, and exclaimed, "So tired." Then he lay looking at the ceiling for a while and thought, "Business is progressing well. Money is steadily pouring in. I should start gathering information about Hua Yon." At this moment, there was suddenly a knock on the door. He asked, "Who is it?" The person outside replied softly, "It's Sabina, your subordinate." Is it mealtime already?" He thought, then sat up and said, "Come in." Sabina entered with a container in her hand. He silently rejoiced. "It's finally here." He looked at the dish in front of him. "This is ice cream, my favorite. This dish is made by mixing ice and fruit. It was coincidentally invented by this girl, Sabina. Thank you," he politely told the girl. Sabina happily bowed her head and replied, "Ha ha ha, it's nothing. Enjoy your meal, Sir Magic Swordsman." After putting down the food, she also quickly left. Bayek Mujin picked up a spoon ready to dig into the ice cream and thought, "Let's eat. Let's try it." When he ate the first bite, he silently marveled. "What is this? It's so delicious. It's both cool and sweet, a flavor I never thought of when I was in the North Sea. I heard the Joel merchant caravan also flourished thanks to this. Now I can understand." Suddenly, he exclaimed in amazement, Is it all gone already? It seems one bowl isn't enough." Then Baek Mujin leisurely carried the bowl outside. As he walked, he thought, although it's a bit troublesome to go get it myself, everyone is busy anyway. What's all that noise again? What caught his eye was the sight of Sabina frantically waving her hands, saying, "Excuse me, everyone, please line up." A man laughed loudly. "A lowly little girl like you dares to order us, the noble Azure clan." Looking at this scene, Baek Mujin thought, who are these insolent people? At this moment, those guys were still relentlessly causing trouble in front of the store. A guy with a hairstyle like Sun Wukong stood behind Sabina and said, "Little sister, don't you know who we are? Stop messing around and go into the house and bring out some ice cream for us." Then he even pointed at her and said arrogantly, "We heard about your reputation, so we came by. If it's not delicious, you just watch out for us." Sabina said loudly, "The Roel Merchant Guild doesn't sell ice cream to people who cut in line." Though scared, she still spoke bravely. "I hope you can understand." Just as she finished speaking, the fat man standing in front of her punched the counter and shouted loudly, "What did you say, you commoner? You're telling us to line up. Standing with you people is already insulting enough, and now you want me to line up? Do you want to die?" The guy continuously shouted, making him standing on the side holding an empty ice cream bowl, speechless. Sabina bravely retorted, "Just because you're a noble doesn't mean you get to eat ice cream first." The guy pointed at himself again and said loudly, "What did you say? You dare to oppose a noble?" In Sabina's heart, she thought, even if these guys cause trouble, Sir Magic Swordsman will definitely save me. She said to the guy in a low voice, "Oppose no. I'm just following the rules. I'm speaking properly. Principles are principles." Hearing her say that, the man with the Sun Wukong hairstyle gritted his teeth in anger and snarled, "You bitch! Do you want to die?" The man shouted loudly and drew his sword, pointing it at her. Seeing the blade, Sabina also immediately became wary. When the guy was about to make a move, the person standing next to him with long dark hair pulled his shoulder and called out, "Samuelin, don't be rash." The person said, his eyes faintly glowing, "Don't you consider our position?" Samuel, hearing this, broke out in a cold sweat and stammered an apology. The person approached Sabina, drawing her attention, and she cried out, Immediately after, he gave her a threatening look and said, "We want to eat ice cream." Faced with the cold gaze and words, Sabina thought, "What's with this cold gaze? It feels like I'm being frozen." She stammered in fear, That... The person cut her off. "I don't like to wait. Bring it out quickly." Hearing that, she replied tremblingly, "Yes, please wait a moment." Suddenly, Edmund called out loudly, "Sabina, wait!" He ran over saying, "We don't sell ice cream to people who cut in line. Have you forgotten?" Sabina calmed down and replied, "I'm sorry." The person silently looked at him. Baek Mujin, observing from the side, thought, there must be a special reason for him to react so strongly. Immediately after, he spoke loudly to the crowd, so angry that veins bulged on his forehead. "Please leave. We don't want to break the rules of the Merchant Guild anymore." The fat leader shouted furiously, "Insolent old man." Samuel continued, "How dare you insult a noble?" In response, Joel said with a serious face, "You misunderstand. I'm not selling to you, and it's not just because you cut in line." Hearing that, they looked at each other with puzzled expressions. The one with long hair glared and asked, "Then what other reason is there?" He replied, "You should go ask Duke Icarus yourselves." His face contorted, cold and stern. The surrounding people, hearing this, immediately exclaimed in alarm, "Duke Icarus? Did he just say Duke Icarus?" The other guy asked him. "How do you know my father?" Then he continued, "Wait a minute. You look familiar." Looking at him, his eyes suddenly widened, and he said softly, "I understand. So that's how it is. Haha, you're from the Roel Merchant Guild, right?" That cold gaze made the two people with him break out in a cold sweat, thinking, that smile. Justin only smiles like that when he's furious. Justin drew his sword, a cunning and savage smile on his face, and said, "The punishment for insulting a noble is your life. You will definitely die." The words had barely left his lips when he swung his sword high and laughed perversely. He accurately placed the blade at Edmund's neck while he was miserably thinking, "Damn it, I haven't even avenged my family yet. It's so unfair." Suddenly, a loud noise rang out. Edmund, seeing the sword hadn't reached his neck, also exclaimed in surprise. He opened his eyes to see him standing in front of him, blocking Justin's sword with his bare hands. He called out loudly, "Sir Magic Swordsman." The sword couldn't even make a scratch on him. Baek Mujin gently waved his hand, instantly sending Justin flying. The old bastard shouted angrily. "How dare you? Do you want to die too?" Baek Mujin just felt annoyed, put his hand to his ear and thought, I was just about to eat ice cream and encountered this scene. After just a few words of argument, this kid draws his sword and demands to kill. It's truly speechless. He brought the finger he had just used to pick his ear to his front, blew on it, and then said to Justin, "You little brat, you have no manners at all." Justin, hearing this, let out a confused, "Huh." Baek Mujin continued, "If your parents didn't teach you, then I will." Hearing that, Justin lowered his head, then looked at him and cursed softly. "You bastard." The sword in Justin's hand glowed with magic. "I'll kill you," Justin shouted loudly and swung his sword, lunging at him. After a missed strike, the madman's fury flared up again. He continued to slash. Just like that, Justin continuously slashed down with countless strikes, but Baek Mujin simply dodged them all. "Oh my, so scary," he teased. While dodging, he said softly to Justin, "It's pretty good for a child to be able to do this. But your sword can't even touch a single hair of mine. Justice always comes with reason and harmony. If your actions represent the nobility, then the nobles are truly disrespectful." He continued, "However, I'm not a narrow-minded person, so today I will correct your behavior." As he spoke, a light emanated from around his body. When Justin's slash passed through his afterimage, his figure gradually disappeared. Justin was so angry that blood vessels bulged in his eyes and he roared furiously, "You damn bastard! How dare you use that tone with me?" Suddenly, as Justin's entire body lunged forward, Baek Mujin was already standing beside him, his eyes filled with killing intent, and said, "Whatever you say. But now I will teach you how to respect others." The protagonist thought to himself, "This guy reminds me of the Central Plains. Because I was so focused on finding Huayan, I seem to have forgotten the principles of this world. In the end, the weak are prey to the strong, is truly the truth." As he thought, his hand formed the gesture of preparing to flick. Baek Mujin flicked, and an invisible chi stream shot out. The chi stream sped towards Justin's arm. A small explosion echoed around. Red blood gushed out continuously. Suddenly, due to the pain, Justin gritted his teeth, sweat pouring down. A hole had appeared in the middle of his wrist, from which many blood vessels and tendons were clearly visible. Justin clutched his arm, collapsed, and cried out, "My hand! Oh, my arm!" He looked at his hand, which was gradually changing color, while Baek Mujin just looked down at him with eyes full of contempt. "What just happened?" Edmund asked in alarm when he saw him take a tired breath. But he didn't answer, just walked towards Justin. When the other two young masters stepped forward, they shouted, "Don't come any closer! One more step and I'll cut you down." The two immediately drew their swords, wanting to protect Justin. Samuel said in fear, "I told you not to come any closer." Baek Mujin suddenly seemed to see something strange and asked coldly, "You can just lie there. Why bother trying to stand up?" Justin grabbed Samuel's shoulder and shouted, "Get out!" making him call out Justin's name in alarm. Baek Mujin looked at Justin approaching, stood opposite him as if seeing something funny, and laughed a few times. He even gave a sneer full of contempt. In his heart, he thought, "How ridiculous, only good at showing off." Thinking this, he pointed his hand again. "If you want to play more, fine. Let's see how long you can last," he said as a powerful and terrifying aura emanated from around him. A heaven-shattering explosion rang out, shaking the ground and making the entire group unsteady. The two following Justin were startled and horrified when they saw dark red blood splattered on his hand. Justin had been sent flying tens of meters away by the intense force of Baek Mujin's attack, collapsing to the ground. One of the two anxiously ran closer and asked, "Justin, are you okay?" "Get up." His voice trembled, his eyes full of worry as he looked at Justin's wrist. Blood gushed endlessly from the wound, soaking his clothes and making the other guy even more frightened. "Justin, your wrist." Baek Mujin stood not far away, his eyes thoughtfully observing the scene. He sighed inwardly. "Impossible. I only used a little bit of my power." His intention to strike again suddenly stopped, a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. "Tisk, tisk. He seems weaker than I thought. Should I stop?" The protagonist closed his eyes carefully, considering. Finally, he decided, "I still don't fully grasp the situation here. I can't kill him." He concluded his thoughts and stepped forward, his cold voice ringing out, "I cannot kill people indiscriminately." Justin grimaced, clutching his injured arm tightly. His eyes filled with hatred as he looked at Baek Mujin, his voice full of challenge. "Who do you think you are? To do this? Don't you know who I am?" He snarled fiercely. How dare you treat me Justin Paris like this?" Baek Mujin just looked at him with cold eyes as if looking at a useless insect. He said nothing, just thought to himself, "This guy is really stubborn. He refuses to reflect on his own actions and only knows how to curse. Truly an incorrigible brat." In that moment, a light flashed in his eyes. He asked himself if he should kill him, but then he sighed again. "But if I do that, I'll be no different from them." At this moment, Justin's two companions rushed towards Baek Mujin, swinging their swords and shouting loudly, "You bastard! Do you think you can get away after causing trouble with a noble?" The other one also shouted, "Answer me quickly." Baek Mujin glanced at them with an annoyed expression and thought, "Then I have to change my strategy." He saw a piece of firewood lying on the ground and quickly assessed the situation. "Perfect! Something useful again." With a refreshed smile, Baek Mujin picked up the firewood and executed a few moves with it, shouting, "Void grasping object." A powerful light flashed, shaking the entire surrounding space. The light flashed before Justin's eyes, stunning him, unable to react to the unexpected power from a seemingly harmless piece of firewood. Justin tried to stand up, but his body was still unsteady. Around him, his servants were still horrified. One stammered, What just happened? That guy? Is he a magic swordsman?" Baek Mujin stood there, smiling enigmatically, while a powerful aura emanated from around him. "Sword ki," he replied calmly. "Sword kinesis." The words made Justin even more confused. What? Justin asked again, his voice full of fear. Baek Mujin touched the firewood in his hand, the sword chi emanating from it growing stronger. "Sword evocation," he explained with a smug look, his eyes fixed on Justin. The panic in his eyes gradually became clear. He glared and shouted, "Don't come near! I told you not to come near!" But Baek Mujin only became more terrifying. He shouted again, "Sword ki!" The aura spread everywhere. Justin and his two servants were terrified to the extreme, huddling close together, continuously backing away. Their screams echoed along with their pathetic cries. "Don't tell me!" Baek Mujin burst out laughing, raising the firewood high. "For filthy people like you, a beating is the best solution." Without a trace of mercy, he struck them with a powerful magic spell, making all three suffer its full force. "Let me show you what true power is." He snarled, his eyes blazing, becoming more and more excited. It was impossible to count the number of blows Baek Mujin rained down. Each strike made him more ecstatic to the point where he couldn't stop laughing. Finally, an extremely powerful blue light erupted, shaking the entire surrounding space. The tranquility of dusk was shattered by heaven-shattering explosions. The sun had set, and it was finally completely dark. After enduring so much, these three could no longer stand firm. They knelt, trembling, begging. Justin bowed his head, his voice full of remorse. "I was wrong. Please stop." The other two also sincerely clasped their hands. "We were wrong. Please spare us. We won't do it again." Baek Mujin slammed the staff onto the ground with a sharp thud. "What?" He brought his hand close to his ear, as if he couldn't hear. "I can't hear anything." Anger and resentment welled up in Justin's heart. He gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with indignation. "Yes, I'll kill you. I'll definitely cut off your head and crush it." His eyes gradually darkened. Those words, as if swallowed, carried an unconcealable hatred. Finally, to save his life, Justin clenched his fists and shouted, "I was wrong. I will never make a mistake like today again." Baek Mujin heard this and seemed quite satisfied. His expression stabilized, and he drew the staff behind his back, thinking, "I knew it. No matter where you go, there's nothing like a good beating." He smiled and advised, "From now on, remember to behave a little more like a human." Edmund Joel was moved to tears and exclaimed, "Sir Magic Swordsman." He watched Baek Mujin's steady, imposing figure and silently said, "Thank you very much, sir." Scene changed to the next day at the royal palace. The atmosphere in the royal assembly was tense. Count Slave, a blonde-haired man, announced, "A few days ago we received a report from an informant who infiltrated the Zibia kingdom, and he is Count Slave." King Tomalova III replied, "What's wrong?" Count Slave replied briefly, "The Zibia kingdom has succeeded in reclaiming the Breakstone wasteland in the barren north. It seems the Hazen kingdom is also trying to develop the land beyond the Sahara Desert." Duke Sejipon Icarus, with a stern face, questioned, "Beyond the Sahara Desert, I heard that place is too dangerous because of monsters. Does the Hazen kingdom have any special measures?" Count Slave replied, "We are not sure, but we suspect that Ainos has sided with them." The king, hearing this, was startled and exclaimed, "Ainos." Count Sai, with a worried expression, asked again, "Is it true?" Count Slave frowned and replied, Yes." Baron Arista also asked, "You mean one of the top swordsmen on the continent?" "Right, I heard this person is quite mysterious. According to accounts, he doesn't carry money, but just wanders the continent and doesn't belong to any organization. Why would such a person be in Hazen?" Count Clan asked, "If it's not for money, could it be that he has fallen in love with someone?" Count Slave thought for a moment, then frowned and replied, "Perhaps so." Count Kenchi gasped, "Is it true?" Another person also asked in confusion, What did you say?" The king looked at everyone and asked, "Who has he fallen in love with? Who is she?" Another noble replied, "It is someone you all know very well. That beautiful girl is none other than the younger sister of the current king, the second king of Hazen." Count Slave cautiously replied, "Princess Daphne." Another noble, hearing this, asked, "Are you saying that the person who regards his younger sister as his most precious treasure has married her off? It seems that destructive king has finally revealed his true nature." King Tomalova looked at Count Slave and said, If that's true, then the Hazen Kingdom now has 2 top swordsmen, Count Slave replied. Indeed, and they are likely to try to expand their territory, a goal they have failed at many times. King Tomilova calculated in his head. In the east, the Hazen Kingdom is expanding its territory. In the south, the SBI Merchant Kingdom is developing land. And across the sea to the west, the Empire is also expanding its territory. We cannot sit idly by. He cautiously asked, "What do you all think? I wish to hear your opinions." A duke offered his opinion. "In my opinion, it might be beneficial if we expand our territory." King Tomilova wondered, "But we don't have suitable land. Are you suggesting we cross the larger mountain range to the north?" Duke Icarus suddenly stood up, startling everyone around. He said seriously, "We have no other choice." King Tomilova also stood up, pondering alone. Expanding to the north is very difficult, and even if successful, the entire region is covered in ice and snow. Therefore, advancing north would mean being pushed out of the power struggle, so everyone will naturally be hesitant. The king glanced at Count Slave, silently calculating. Soon someone will be sent to the north to deal with the issue of territorial expansion. He sat down and said clearly to everyone below, "Let's conclude today's meeting. I will reconvene on another occasion." Duke Icarus, seeing the situation, frowned, unable to help but wonder about the Count and his majesty. Everyone had left, leaving him standing there alone, extremely puzzled about what they were hiding. After everyone had left, only 2 people remained, the king and Count Slave, conferring in another secret room. The king asked, "Kotson, have you made any mistakes recently?" Count Slave replied, "No, your majesty." The king continued, "Then it must be the duke stirring up trouble again. For the past 10 years he has continuously sent those who oppose him to the north." Count Slave replied, "Is it all my fault?" The king sighed warmly and said, "Don't say that. You are the only subordinate I can still trust." Count Slave nodded slightly. "Yes, your majesty." The king continued, "Anyway, forget it. Recently there have been rumors that a new type of ice is being sold in the capital. Do you know anything about this?" Count Slave said, "Ah, you mean the ice candy sold by the EO merchant caravan." "Your majesty." The king, hearing this, exclaimed in surprise, "Ice candy?" Count Slave explained, "Yes, it's different from ordinary ice. It's very sweet, hence the name." The king asked again, "How long will that merchant caravan be open?" Count Slave replied, "I'm quite sure they will be open quite late, your majesty." In his heart, he thought, "It seems his majesty is interested in this ice candy. If that's the case, then it's good." Thinking this, the count said, "I am preparing to secretly inspect the market. Would you like to stop by on the way, your majesty?" The king, hearing this, was pleased and laughed with great delight. "That seems like a very good idea." Immediately after, the king burst out laughing with satisfaction. "As expected, you understand me well." The count also laughed. "Serving your wishes is my duty, your majesty." The king, his face full of anticipation, asked, "Then when will you go out for inspection?" Scene changed to evening at the merchant caravan's shop. Inside the house, the children were all gathered in front of Baek Mujin, excitedly exclaiming, "Please teach us magic." Baek Mujin, who was eating ice cream, was so stunned that his mouth hung open, speechless. Sabina, looking at Baek Mujin's expression, said awkwardly, "We apologize for coming to see you so abruptly, sir, and we know not everyone can learn magic, but we must learn it." Annie also spoke up. "Yes, sir, magic swordsman. If the merchant caravan gets into trouble like last time, it will be very dangerous. I promise to practice very hard, so please teach me." Baek Mujin put down his ice cream bowl and slowly replied, "Hey kid, your desire to learn is very commendable. But as I said before, I'm not any kind of mage. What I'm using is—" He paused, and Lak Fi interjected, "Isn't it also like martial arts?" "You said so before, sir." Baek Mujin nodded. "Yes, you're right, kid. Anyway, what I'm using isn't magic, but martial arts. More precisely, it's called White Snow God Palm." As Baek Mujin spoke, he created a layer of ice in his palm, making the children's eyes widen in admiration. "If I don't know magic, how can I teach everyone?" Hearing this, Leo offered an idea. "Then can you teach us martial arts, sir?" Baek Mujin was startled. "Huh. Wait, what the hell are you talking about, kid?" Sabina and the others also agreed in unison. "Yes, that's a good idea," and exclaimed excitedly, "I also want to learn martial arts." Then Sabina continuously pleaded with Baek Mujin, "Please, sir magic swordsman, please teach us. We beg you, please teach us." Baek Mujin thought to himself, "Those serious eyes show a strong determination to achieve their goals, just like me when I was young." He unconsciously recalled the past. When he was a child, Baek Mujin had also gathered all his determination and said, "Please teach me martial arts." But the look he received at that time was his master's astonishment. "While I'm in a hurry to find Huayan like this, I can't casually accept disciples. However, these children, they also want to protect someone. Moreover, they have also helped me in many ways. Although I don't know much according to the rules, I'm not allowed to teach the martial arts of the North Sea Ice Palace carelessly. But this is another world. Sabina, seeing him sitting there lost in thought, pleaded again. Please. Baek Mujin replied. Let me think about it. Come back here at this time tomorrow. I'll give you kids an answer then. Hearing this, the kids were all very expectant, their eyes, each and every one, seeming to flash with a ray of hope. Lak Fi excitedly asked, Will you really teach us, sir? Leo also spoke up. Thank you, sir. Even if I die, I will not forget this favor. Baek Mujin reluctantly called them back. Wait, kids. The protagonist stood up abruptly and said loudly, That's not what I mean. But the kids didn't care. They were all excitedly running outside. Yay. We'll be able to use martial arts too. Then, regardless of how Baek Mujin felt, they slammed the door shut and left their voices echoing back. All right. Good night, sir. Baek Mujin stood there stunned, thinking miserably. How did things turn out like this? Well, I'll figure it out later. I wonder if I was like this when I was their age. Master must have been very tired. Children are truly carefree. He walked to the window and looked out, then startled himself. What? Why is there the sound of metal clashing at this hour? Is there no time to rest? Outside in the forest, several people were fighting. Leaves rustled and flew. A dark, cold aura emanated around them. It seemed a fierce battle was taking place. Blood splattered. The ones being surrounded were two people, the Count and the King. The Count stood in front of the King to protect him, but was also exhausted, wondering if he could hold out until reinforcements arrived. Who would have thought we'd be ambushed while going out to eat ice candy? While he was lost in thought, he suddenly sensed an immense heat radiating from behind. He hurriedly turned his head and was horrified. There, a mage was frantically urging fire burst. Only a giant hand was seen continuously creating fire magic. A mage with a terrifying and fierce face. Countless scorching flames immediately struck towards the Count and the King's group. The flames came too quickly, making it impossible for the Count to dodge, partly because the King was behind him. Immediately after, a powerful explosion rang out. Boom, boom, boom. No one knew what the fate of the King and the Count would be. The King behind shouted anxiously, Kotsen! He hurriedly ran into the flames, searching for his subordinate. The Count, having withstood the opponent's previous blow, now clearly looked battered. The King anxiously and continuously called, Kotsen, Kotsen, are you okay? Your Majesty, I'm sorry, the Count said in an exhausted voice. The King said anxiously and in alarm, But your hand is bleeding. The Count, ignoring his own pain, continued, Your Majesty, this is an emergency, so please forgive me. The King nodded. I understand. Don't worry. The Count silently pondered. They have mages. Their clothes are too similar, making it hard for me to distinguish. Thinking this, he loudly and calmly ordered, Reform the formation. The guards immediately formed up again, ready to fight. On the opposite side, the leader also loudly ordered, Attack again! Leave no one alive! The shouts of yes echoed continuously. An arrogant opponent rushed forward, shouting, We must behead that scumbag noble. Another continued, Hey, that's my reward. The Count didn't say much, directly rushing forward to attack. His strike was extremely fast, instantly taking the life of the one who had just spoken. The remaining ones, seeing this, their eyes immediately turned bloodshot with indignation. They rushed forward from behind in unison, wanting to attack the Count from the back. 2 against 1, if not crippled, then at least maimed. But that was bullshit. The Count reacted very quickly, turning and swinging his sword to meet their long swords. The two sides clashed very quickly, their opponents extremely close. The Count angrily shouted, Who sent you? Speak quickly. The man in black retorted, What does it matter? You're going to die anyway. The Count thought, The previous magic attack has already taken down many of our people. These bastards have no intention of letting us live. If we lose, it will be the end. But for the kingdom, I must protect His Majesty at all costs. Thinking this, his eyes flashed with determination. But on this side, the mage swung his hand again, calling for rain and fire. A large flame erupted. Seeing that mage wanting to cast a spell again, he couldn't help but curse, Damn it, magic again. The Count loudly warned, Magic is coming. Everyone, protect His Majesty at all costs. The mage laughed loudly. Ha, too late today. You all must die. Suddenly, at this moment, an icy aura rushed towards them. It felt so familiar. An ice spear shot straight towards the fire mage. When fire meets water, it can only be extinguished. The King's guards were still dazed, not understanding what had just happened. The Count and the King were no exception. Everyone's eyes widened in astonishment. My savior has arrived. An arrogant guard shouted, Who is it? Baek Mujin laughed perversely and replied, Oh my, you guys. He stood high above laughing. Looks like you got caught, huh? But I like it this way. Immediately after appearing and disappearing like a phantom, the protagonist vanished in a flash. The crowd hadn't even understood what was happening when Baek Mujin appeared behind them, swinging his hand and slapping the necks of several guys to scratch his itchy hands and feet. Baek Mujin spoke. I was just planning to take a walk and admire the moon, but I heard a noise coming from here, so I came to take a look. And this sudden appearance startled him, and he turned his head feeling uneasy and worried, thinking, since when did he appear there? Baek Mujin didn't strike immediately but looked at him and said, let's end this quickly before the ice cream melts. His face contorted like a monkey eating ginger. He thought, I've missed all his movements. This guy is truly extraordinary. Damn it, this bastard. He was just a little flustered because he didn't know what was happening. In fact, he's much superior to us. Then I must assassinate the king as quickly as possible and then get out of here. Baek Mujin looked at the weapon in his hand and couldn't help but feel interested. Oh, what's that? On this side, the other guy quickly swung his blade towards his neck, shouting, leave this guy to me. You guys go kill the king. As soon as this strike was made, a dazzling white light erupted, making it impossible to see the situation clearly. When the white light dissipated, Baek Mujin was seen blocking the young man's attack with an ice sword. The protagonist smiled smugly and exclaimed, I didn't expect to see a saber in this place. Then I'll also use the snow scale of the North Sea Ice Palace to play with you. Come on, little bro. The young man, provoked, gritted his teeth in anger. This bastard! He once again madly rushed towards Baek Mujin. Don't even think about leaving here alive. Baek Mujin didn't care much and still smiled very excitedly. All right, if you're so sincere, then I'll have to indulge you. The dazzling white light erupted again. The young man's attack was once again blocked by Baek Mujin with extreme ease. He didn't give up because of that and swung his saber again. No matter how fast he attacked, Baek Mujin still easily dodged it by a hair's breadth. For Baek Mujin, this fight was as easy as eating candy. Despite the opponent constantly fighting back in various ways, the protagonist just gently leaned to dodge. This made the mad blood in the other guy's heart boil. After a while, he had had enough. While swinging his sword, he shouted, "You damn rat, die!" He rushed quickly towards Baek Mujin. The protagonist leaned to dodge the attack and simultaneously struck him with a palm from behind. The young man hit by this palm immediately let out a painful grunt. This time, Baek Mujin didn't dodge anymore, but swung his sword wanting to counterattack. This time, it was his turn to attack madly, while the young man struggled to defend. Very quickly, the young man was pushed back, falling into an extremely dangerous situation. Beautiful sword strikes flashed out in an instant, illuminating the entire forest. In the end, he still had no way to dodge and was caught by Baek Mujin by the head. Baek Mujin forcefully slammed his head to the ground. After dealing with him, the corner of Baek Mujin's mouth curled up in a refreshed smile. He then stood there silently, looking up at the remaining people. The king doubtfully asked his subordinate slave, "What on earth is going on?" Count Slave replied, "We should retreat first, your majesty." The king, hearing this, was startled, somewhat disbelieving his ears, his face covered in fearful sweat. The king said, "Slave, that person is the hope of our kingdom." Slave asked in confusion, What do you mean, your majesty?" On this side, the young assassins were also discussing. "Morian captain, is he a swordsman?" Baek Mujin then spoke again, cursing, "These damn bastards. If it weren't for you, I'd be snoring soundly in bed by now. So troublesome, it's all because of you. Because of you, my ice cream got melted by the rain." So it turned out he was regretting his half-eaten ice cream in the room. The crowd, hearing this, all looked at each other with confused expressions and asked in unison, "Ice cream? What the hell is ice cream?" Baek Mujin gritted his teeth again and shouted, "Let me tell you how terrifying it is when ice cream gets angry. I'll count to 3. After I finish counting, anyone who still dares to stand here, prepare to die." The assassins, without a trace of fear, snorted coldly. "Nonsense. Don't be afraid of him. There are more of us." "That's right. He's only good at talking big." The crowd then rushed towards Baek Mujin in unison. "Eat shit, bastard." Baek Mujin didn't care and was still standing there counting. 1, 2. Very quickly, he was surrounded by swords and sabers from all directions. The assassins rushed up to surround Baek Mujin, but it was too bad for them. They attacked just as he counted to 3. It seemed as if he wouldn't be able to react in time and would be stabbed to death. But an unexpected thing happened. In the critical moment, he managed to deploy his protective chi. The assassins couldn't pierce through his protective chi and was startled. An assassin said furiously, "Boring, huh?" Baek Mujin raised his sword, and a chilling aura spread out with it. "Now don't blame me for being heartless. I warned you beforehand. You don't like it gentle. You prefer violence. I'll indulge you all." A powerful sword strike immediately descended. None of the people surrounding him could react in time and were instantly pierced by ice crystals shooting up from the ground, killing them. The Count's group, observing this scene from afar, were all stunned, their mouths agape, exclaiming, "What the hell? This is impossible!" Baek Mujin then exhaled. "I've finished my revenge. Oh my god. Did he come here just to avenge his cup of ice cream? This is too domineering." After speaking, Baek Mujin immediately circulated his internal energy and flew away, leaving the king and the Count bewildered, calling out, "Hey, wait!" No matter how much they called, Baek Mujin didn't stop. The Count sighed, "He's gone." The king glanced back and told Slave, "Quickly go find that man for me." Slave placed his hand on his chest and replied solemnly, "Please trust in me, your majesty." Scene changed to another place. Edmund, after hearing his subordinate's report, was surprised. Learn magic? The other person nodded in confirmation. Yes, sir. Edmund continued, magic isn't something easy to learn. Don't tell me the one teaching the children is the magic swordsman. The other person replied, That's right, sir. The others and I also want to learn magic very much, but I don't understand why the magic swordsman only accepted those 4 kids. When he said this, he was startled and looked at Edmund, seeing a gloomy aura emanating from him. He thought, has he been too busy lately, so he's tired? Royer. Edmund thought joyfully, there are many people in this world who want to learn magic, but very few actually succeed. It seems luck has found the children. Then he asked, where are the children learning? Quickly take me there, he thought joyfully. Perhaps the day my merchant caravan can spread its wings will come sooner than I think. A moment later, he quickly led Edmund to the children's training spot. Under the tree, Beck Mujin, after hearing Edmund, said with confusion, What the hell are you talking about? Edmund laughed loudly. I knew you would react like this. Ha 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 ha. Beck Mujin, not in the mood for jokes, asked again. What do you mean? Edmund smiled and said, I heard the magic swordsman is teaching magic to our children. Beck Mujin sighed inwardly, knowing that the people in the merchant caravan had already been talking about this. Edmund was moved to tears and said chokingly, I am truly very grateful to you, sir. I don't know how to repay this favor. Just then, someone else approached from behind Beck Mujin. Edmund looked at him with confusion. What's wrong? Henry. The other person said to Beck Mujin. A guest has come to see the magic swordsman, sir. Edmund, hearing this, was very surprised, his eyes widening as he exclaimed, A guest? A young man approached, clasped his hands, his eyes sparkling as he looked at Beck Mujin and stammered, Sir, magic swordsman. Beck Mujin didn't even bother to look at him and said casually, Go back quickly. The young man knelt crying and wailing, Please, sir, don't be like this. Please have mercy on this small body. His Highness said, If I can't bring you back today, then don't even bother showing my face again. Immediately after, he rushed forward and clung tightly to Beck Mujin's leg. This annoyed the protagonist, who shouted furiously, What does that have to do with me? Edmund, standing to the side, unintentionally overheard the conversation and silently pondered. His Highness, could it be that the king already knows about the existence of Sir Magic Swordsman? The young man, regardless of how annoyed Beck Mujin was, still clung tightly, refusing to let go, his voice sincere and pleading. Please have mercy on this pitiful person. Please, don't refuse His Majesty's invitation anymore. Beck Mujin pulled his leg back sharply and snorted coldly. Let go of me, troublesome. Why do you come here every day and bother others? Stop wasting your effort and go back. The young man, helpless, wailed in despair. Oh, Sir Magic Swordsman. Beck Mujin sighed and lamented. Honestly, I can't find any clues related to Huayan. Instead, I'm stuck with this bunch all day. He raised his hand to the pendant around his neck, unconsciously recalling his time in the Central Plains. No, I've conquered the entire Zhongbei in the past 3 years. If I just wait a little longer, I can enter the Central Plains, and yet you dare to tell me to negotiate with those cunning Martial Alliance people, you... Opposite him, he calmly explained. Your subordinate thinks that at this time we should show them that the North Sea Ice Palace doesn't oppress anyone with strength. Of course, even if we say that, they won't understand, and we'll have to show off our strength again. At that time, your subordinate will take the lead, so please rest assured, Your Majesty. Beck Mujin, after hearing this, smiled as if he understood the problem and replied, I know, I trust you, but if they refuse to cooperate, tell them to prepare themselves. The other person laughed loudly. That's our palace master. Then, on the way to meet the Martial Alliance people for negotiations, he met the love of his life. That person was none other than Huayan, a girl of devastating beauty. Beck Mujin was struck by love at first sight. That was the best day of his life. Her bright angelic smile made me dizzy with infatuation. Every time I remember this, the corner of my mouth can't help but smile. He thought to himself, right now I just need to think about Huayan. There's no need to be too sensitive about everything else, but at least I need a plan to deal with them. Beck Mujin walked leisurely, unconsciously passing by the children's training ground. They were sitting in meditation, cultivating. Seeing him approach, Lak Fi immediately called out, Master. Beck Mujin looked at them, smiled and thought, there are many ways. I can just think about it slowly. Very quickly, dusk began to fall. Scene changed to the royal palace. The king sat in the palace sighing, rejected again. The young man continuously bowed his head. I sincerely apologize, Your Highness. I have no way to invite him. The king lamented, the more I think about it, the stranger this kid is. I just intended to reward him for saving my life. The young man raised his head and offered an idea. Tomorrow I will go there again, Your Highness. The king waved his hand. Forget it. How many times have you been there already? Just then a voice came from outside. Your Highness, the princess has come to visit. The king excitedly said, let her in. You withdraw. As he finished speaking, the princess slowly entered. She was a little confused when she saw the weeping guard walking out. Then she gently curtsied respectfully. The king said softly, "Xion, you've come," the princess asked with concern. "Father, why does the envoy look unwell? Has something happened?" The king hemmed and hawed, stammering, that matter." Then he told his little princess the whole story. After learning the truth, Xion exclaimed in fear, "Really, father? Are you okay? You weren't injured anywhere, were you?" The king gently took her hand and comforted her. "If something had happened, why would I still be here? Don't worry too much, child." Hearing this, his daughter felt a little relieved, but then sighed and exclaimed, "But why does that magic swordsman keep refusing?" The king replied wearily, "I don't know either. He is a talented person. I want to recruit him as my attendant, but he completely refuses to meet me." The princess, slightly surprised, continued, "Father, you praise him so much. He must be truly outstanding." The king replied, "Yes, he is truly so outstanding that I have no words to describe him. Do you know about the recent incident where the merchant caravan made ice cream and ice to sell?" Xion replied, "I've heard about it, father." The king said, "Those things were all made by the person who saved me." "Really, father?" "Yes, that's why I brought him here." Xion replied wearily, "So that's it. No wonder you were so anxious." She recalled the delicious taste she had eaten a few days ago. "I can't forget the feeling when the ice cream melted in my mouth. What a coincidence, I didn't expect the person father is looking for to be him. I wonder what kind of person he is." Aylin fell into a lovesick daze. Looking at the children also enjoying the delicious and cool ice cream, a desire arose in her. "If I have the chance, I really want to meet him." On this side, Baek was still teaching the children to cultivate in preparation for departure. Looking at the children, he silently rejoiced, thinking, they've only been learning for half a month, yet they can already exude such an aura. Indeed, the chi concentration here is also much denser than in the Central Plains. After a while, he told the kids to stop. "Now, all of you can adjust your mana. So now we will proceed to the next stage." The kids excitedly nodded in unison and replied, "Yes, sir." Just then, the young envoy poked his head out from behind a tree and said, "Sir Swordsman." Baek expression immediately soured, and he thought annoyedly, "What the hell is this loop repeating itself with this situation just like before?" He turned his head and saw that the envoy had brought another person this time. He didn't know who it was, but the protagonist felt weary and let out a long sigh. He thought, "I didn't see him this morning, so I thought he wouldn't come anymore." After thinking for a moment, he scratched his neck and asked, "Why did you come here again?" Just then, the pendant on his chest glowed intensely again. Baek was so shocked he almost jumped. He thought, "This light." He was startled and turned his head to look at the person beside the envoy. The princess then removed her hood, smiled brightly, and said, "It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. I am the princess of the Drake Kingdom." Baek couldn't believe it. "I found her. That face, that figure, I've longed for her day and night." And it was the princess's appearance that piqued Baek interest. They returned home talking. Voices echoed out. "I've heard everything. Thank you for saving my father," the princess said politely. Baek nodded and replied, "Yes, I saved him." The princess was confused when she heard the protagonist's tone. She thought, "Me and him? Why is he talking like this? No one has ever dared to call my father in such a vulgar way before." Although a little annoyed, she still put on a gentle smile and invited, "Therefore, my father wants to invite you to the palace, but you always refuse." Baek hesitated. About that." Before he could finish, the princess cut him off. "You've refused many times, not just once." So looking at the princess's way of speaking, Baek silently marveled. Indeed, her expression and words are very similar to Hwayeon. Seeing Baek just standing there dumbfounded, the princess asked again, "Why aren't you saying anything, Sir Swordsman?" Baek was startled back to reality. He raised his tea, took a sip, and then asked, "When can I go to the palace?" The princess, who was about to continue advising him, was startled, unable to believe her ears, and stood up abruptly, shouting in alarm, "Huh? What?" Baek put down his teacup and continued, "You said you invited me there." The princess, seeing him agree so easily, was dumbfounded momentarily, unable to process it. After a while, she nodded and exhaled. "That's right, but I came here to invite you to the palace." Baek didn't resist or refuse vehemently like other times, but immediately agreed and replied, "Then when can I go there?" The princess scratched her face and said, "Around 11 o'clock tomorrow." In her heart, she wondered annoyedly, "What's wrong with me?" Baek smiled and replied, "I know. See you tomorrow then." The princess stood up, wanting to leave. "All right then." Baek silently pondered. "Tomorrow I can see her again. But she's a princess, the daughter of the king of this country. How can I marry her?" He recalled the memory from his previous life when Hwayeon was killed by her own father. "This time I need a specific plan so that what happened before doesn't happen again. All right then, it seems I need Edmund's help." Thinking this, he went to talk to Edmund. After hearing him, he was so agitated that he jumped, unable to believe it, and exclaimed, What did you say, sir? Are you kidding me? Marriage, Baek Mujin confirmed again. Yes, I want to marry Sund. Cold sweat poured down Edmund's face like rain. He said tremblingly, Sir, how can you suddenly want to do such a thing? Baek Mujin frowned and stared at him. As if whatever I want to do, no one can stop me. The protagonist said decisively. Why not? Edmund explained, the princess is the only daughter of His Majesty and Queen Xuan. That was the main wife, but she has passed away. The current princess is the one most likely to inherit the throne. Such a noble status. How can someone like you marry the princess? These words of his were like arrows piercing straight into Baek Mujin's chest. He was indeed just an ordinary person without status or position. It hurt like salt in a wound. Edmund was still saying, it's truly an unreasonable matter. To be able to marry the princess, one needs to be a prince of another kingdom with the same status as her, or at least the son of a powerful family. Baek Mujin lowered his head in thought and said, if that's the case, then if I become famous and powerful, it seems there might be a chance, right? Edmund replied, of course. If you become like that, sir, there will be a chance. Baek Mujin nodded. All right, then let me try. Edmund hastily stopped him. Wait, but do you know the rules in the palace, sir? Baek Mujin asked with confusion. What rules? Edmund quickly went to the bookshelf, searching for something. While rummaging, he said, it seems you don't know anything, sir. After a moment, he took out a pile of books and placed them in front of Baek Mujin. All these books are records of court etiquette. Edmund silently pondered. If he causes trouble, the Merchant Guild won't be able to bear the responsibility either. Thinking this, he cheerfully said to Baek Mujin, let me teach you, sir. Baek Mujin thought with confusion, why is he so enthusiastic? Anyway, there's no other way. Thinking this, Baek Mujin said, I understand, then I'll rely on you. Then he picked up a book and read it without knowing if the kid had learned all the characters of this world, yet acting so confident. That night, the two of them studied all night. Edmund continuously reminded, Sir Magic Swordsman, please sit properly. So Baek Mujin learned how to behave in the palace all night. The next morning, as soon as it was light, he changed his clothes. He put on a very luxurious-looking noble outfit. It looked a bit awkward, but wearing the new outfit, he looked quite impressive. Indeed, fine feathers make fine birds, good rice needs good fertilizer was not wrong. Baek Mujin confidently exclaimed, all right, let's go. A moment later, outside the royal palace, a carriage approached. A voice announced, Your Majesty, Sir Magic Swordsman has arrived. Baek Mujin got out of the carriage and did exactly as he had learned the previous night, greeting very politely. It is an honor to meet your Majesty. The king couldn't suppress his joy and laughed loudly. Ha, come here quickly. Please sit down. Baek Mujin walked over, glanced around and felt very confused. Inside, there were many unfamiliar faces sitting. The protagonist thought in confusion. But isn't today supposed to be a private meeting with me? I thought I would meet him privately. Why are there so many people here, heavens? The princess glanced at Baek Mujin's confused expression. At this moment, she also felt extremely awkward and stammered, I'm sorry, I didn't intentionally arrange the meeting for today. Baek Mujin glanced at the princess and thought, seeing her so flustered, it probably wasn't intentional. The young man who had been lectured by Baek Mujin the day before was also present, standing behind his father, his face covered in sweat, and asked his father uncomfortably, why is that guy here? Following the sound, Baek Mujin also looked up at him. As soon as he looked, he recognized him. This is the brat I beat up a good deal the other day, turning him into mush. The more he thought about it, the more interested he became. The corner of his mouth involuntarily curled up in contempt, and he stared at him with cold, sharp eyes. The young man, seeing his demeanor, became angry, and blue veins began to bulge. He was furious, but couldn't do anything. Then, because of his previous personal grudge, he couldn't control his emotions and blurted out, "That bastard!" Just then, his father spoke up, telling him to stop. Justin said aggrievedly, "But father," and before the son could finish explaining, the father interrupted, "Do you want to make a fool of yourself in front of His Majesty?" The young man had no other choice but to try to calm down, then let out a long, patient sigh and replied, "Yes, I understand." Baek Mujin, seeing his attitude, silently praised, "Looks like you know your place." At this moment, many people were also whispering. The king leaned over and whispered to Count Slave, "It seems he was beaten up quite badly." The count replied, "It seems so, Your Majesty." After a moment, the king cleared his throat to break the silence, his deep voice saying, "All right, what wind brought you to accept my invitation? Do you know how disappointed I was when I thought you refused the invitation?" Baek Mujin smiled and said, "There's a reason for this." The king exclaimed doubtfully, "A reason?" Baek Mujin continued, "But you already know that Joe's merchant caravan is currently very short-staffed and busy. Among them, I am the busiest because I have to mass-produce ice. Therefore, I wanted to finish preparations before coming to see Your Majesty." But the orders kept piling up, so by the time I finished making the ice, the day was over. That's why it dragged on until today. The king, after hearing the reason, burst out laughing heartily and replied, "Ha ha ha, so that's it. I hadn't thought of that. Indeed, ice and ice cream are selling like hotcakes. It's only natural that you're busy." Baek Mujin replied, "I am extremely grateful for your majesty's understanding." Looking at his majesty, Baek Mujin recalled the image of Hwa-yeon's father and silently rejoiced. It seems the situation is quite favorable. This king is also quite easygoing, not as grumpy and unpleasant as someone else. The king asked further, Yes, what's your name?" Baek Mujin had no intention of revealing his real name because his name was too different from this world. He casually replied, "I don't have a name. You can just call me Magic Swordsman, your majesty." The king pondered, "Is that so? But I can't keep calling you Magic Swordsman forever. It's truly a headache." In his heart, he thought, or perhaps I should give him a name. Just then, the princess excitedly ran up and said softly, "Or perhaps father can bestow a name himself." The king asked doubtfully, "A name?" The princess waved her hand in denial. "No, I mean bestow a title." Duke Icarus, hearing this, frowned clearly. Disapproving, even the king was very surprised and questioned, "A title?" The princess explained, "Yes, he saved father's life. Such a reward is completely deserved." Duke Seiji Icarus suddenly interrupted, "Yes, this is indeed a good idea. Her Highness the Princess is right. This is none other than the benefactor who saved the king's life. How can we not reward his merits?" "I think Her Highness, the princess's idea is truly excellent." The princess, hearing his praise, felt a little embarrassed and replied, "Your grace is too kind. It's nothing." The king at this point had no more objections and said smugly, "That's right. I cannot ignore my life-saving benefactor. Therefore, I will bestow a title upon you. That night when I saw you save me, I thought of a word." The king recalled the image of the assassins rushing to attack him in unison, yet he remained calm without any fear or hesitation. The king softly called Baek Mujin closer. "Come forward." As Baek Mujin stepped forward, he thought, "A title. Although I don't like kneeling, if I can marry her, this is nothing. Fortunately, I practiced etiquette with Edmund yesterday." The king drew his sword and said clearly, "I, Tomilova III, King of the Drake Kingdom, declare I bestow upon you who bravely disregarded your own life to save me and my attendants from a dangerous situation the title of Knight, along with the name Blizzard." Baek Mujin silently pondered, "Blizzard. It seems in the language of this world it means snowstorm, huh?" The king continued, "This title will be recognized immediately. Knight Blizzard, rise." Baek Mujin said nothing and slowly stood up. As soon as he stood up, the king clapped him on the shoulder and continued, "If it weren't for you, perhaps I wouldn't be here anymore. I want to thank you once again." Baek Mujin smiled and replied, "If a similar situation were to happen, I would still make the same choice, your majesty." Duke Seiji Icarus, at this very moment, spoke up again. "Excellent knight. Blizzard saved his majesty's life. I think he deserves to be granted a territory worthy of his title." The king frowned uncomfortably and said, "Granting a territory to a knight is truly unprecedented. This matter will surely face opposition." The duke replied, "Who dares to oppose his majesty's order? If there is anyone like that, I will let them know what his majesty's decree is." The king felt extremely puzzled and a little worried, thinking, what is he planning to do to go to such lengths? Unable to figure it out, he turned to the other nobles and asked, "Do you all think so too?" Hearing themselves being asked, they all jumped in surprise and stammered, "Us, your majesty." Duke Icarus stared at them with extremely sharp eyes, as if giving a silent warning. The crowd, not daring to confront him, said in fear, "Yes, your majesty. We also have the same opinion." King stroked his chin thoughtfully. Perhaps he had implicitly understood something. He said softly, "If you all agree, then that's good. But where would the territory to be granted to Knight Blizzard be?" "Duke Sergio Pon." Icarus immediately said, "The icy land to the north that we discussed in the meeting a few days ago." The king, hearing this, couldn't help but show a displeased expression. The duke continued, "Coincidentally, we need a lord to govern that land. This is truly a coincidence. And come to think of it, the name Bard and the northern land also suit each other very well. A snowstorm in the northern land sounds very auspicious." The king's heart suddenly understood. So that's what he intends to do. Baek Mujin was also silently pondering. He wants to kick me out of here to avenge his son and regain his honor. I've been suspicious ever since he suggested bestowing a title. The princess was also silently thinking, the northern land. Could it be that icy continent is he planning to send him there? Then she secretly peeked at Baek Mujin's reaction. Baek Mujin also glanced back and thought, a territory he wants to get rid of me because of his son's matter. The protagonist gave a mysterious smile. But since land is being given, why not accept it? I'll take this opportunity to achieve merits and build a reputation to bridge the status gap with her. Two birds with one stone, After Baek Mujin returned, he told Edmund everything. After hearing it, he was so shocked he couldn't believe it and exclaimed, "What the northern land? I heard that place has both snowstorms and avalanches. Such a harsh climate can make mana unstable." "Are you really going there, sir?" Edmund said with regret. Baek Mujin casually drank his tea and replied, "Yes, don't worry, I'm not afraid of the cold. Unstable mana is also fine." Edmund's face was full of helplessness as he sighed. "Sir Magic Swordsman." "No, Sir Baron. You speak as if you were a snowman." Baek Mujin asked doubtfully, "Snowman?" Edmund nodded. "Yes, they are a legendary tribe from ancient times who resided in the far north. Their appearance is quite similar to humans, but they are up to 3 meters tall. They also possess incredible strength and don't know what cold is, but they are extremely aggressive." Baek Mujin said, "Oh, that sounds interesting." Edmund continued, "But that's just a legend because no one has ever met them. Moreover, in the north, there are also warriors called One Road 100. The reason that place has no ruler is because of them." Baek Mujin, without a trace of fear, instead laughed with great interest and said smugly, "It's getting more and more fascinating. If I gain the recognition of the northerners, then my reputation will surely skyrocket." As Baek Mujin spoke, he reached out to open the door. But as soon as the door was ajar, the protagonist's face became extremely alarmed. He was startled because the children were outside eavesdropping. Each and every one of them, knowing he was about to leave, couldn't hold back their tears. Their tear-filled eyes looked extremely pitiful. Baek Mujin asked, "Why are you kids here?" Then they all went outside to talk. After hearing the kids say they wanted to go with him, Baek Mujin decisively refused. "No way, you haven't even practiced much martial arts. What are you going to do following me there?" Sabina replied clearly, "Master, what we have learned is only a small part of what we still need to understand. If the magic swordsman leaves like this, then we won't have anyone to guide us in magic anymore." Leo also agreed with this opinion and continued, "Sabina is right, sir." Then Sabina bowed, her voice sincere. "I beg you, magic swordsman, please take us with you." The other kids also bowed one after another, begging him. Baek Mujin sighed helplessly. "Tisk tisk, these little rascals." Just then he was startled when he saw someone's figure lurking behind her. Seeing she was discovered, she awkwardly greeted, "Hello, Baron." Baek Mujin looked at her with confusion and then asked, "Princess, you look pale. Has something happened?" The princess hesitated and timidly replied, Can we talk privately?" The opportunity had come. How could Baek Mujin refuse? He smiled and said, "Of course we can." Then he turned his face and waved his hand. "You kids go away now." Seeing their master so infatuated, the children were also helpless to the point of being speechless. But they didn't leave immediately, but glanced at each other, seemingly giving some secret signal. Seeing this, Baek Mujin said annoyedly, "Huh? Why haven't you left yet? What are you guys plotting?" Sabina retorted sharply. "Then the magic swordsman must agree to our request." Leo continued, "Wait for your answer, then we'll go." Each and every one of their eyes lit up anxiously, waiting for an answer. Looking at this scene, Baek Mujin replied helplessly, "I know. You guys go now." Hearing this, the children cheered with excitement. Sabina, being older and more sensible, politely bowed her head and said, "Thank you, master." Baek Mujin impatiently said, All right, go quickly now so the adults can talk." After the children left, the princess lamented, "You have such obedient disciples, sir." Baek Mujin replied annoyedly, "Humph, obedient where they're opposing me." The princess, hearing this, couldn't help but burst out laughing. Baek Mujin also smiled along. "Are you feeling more comfortable now, princess?" The princess immediately became dejected and said in an apologetic voice, "I'm sorry, sir. You have to go to the north, all because I mentioned bestowing a title." Baek Mujin couldn't help but feel a surge of emotion, thinking, she's really just like her. She also apologized to me because of Dam Cheon Hak. In his mind, he recalled the memory of that year. Hwa Yeon in his arms cried endlessly, apologizing. She blamed herself. "It's all my fault." And at this moment, Baek Mujin once again saw Hwa Yeon's image appear in the princess. Baek Mujin casually replied, "If I hadn't been granted a title, I wouldn't have been able to set foot in the north." But the princess still felt guilty and continued, "Is that so? I'm truly sorry." Baek Mujin didn't dare to look her straight in the eye, but turned his face away, smiling to himself, thinking, "Oh my God, so cute." Baek Mujin continued to reassure her. "You don't need to apologize, princess." Anyway, he hadn't finished speaking when the princess interrupted. "Can I help you with anything, sir?" Baek Mujin stammered, I'm not sure, but I heard about some kind of lucky charm. If I receive it, it would be quite good." The princess muttered with confusion. "A lucky charm? But what is that?" Baek Mujin leaned in close to her face to face and said, "That is a kiss containing sincere worry for the other person." The princess, hearing this, was startled, her eyes sparkling brightly, and stammered each word. "Oh, a kiss." She then immediately recoiled in fear, her body tensing up, and exclaimed, "What?" Baekmujin, seeing her so agitated, waved his hand embarrassedly and said, "I'm sorry. It seems I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, I have to prepare to leave now. Princess, please forget what I said just now." The princess was still stunned, but before she could say anything more, Baekmujin had turned and left, leaving her standing there watching his retreating figure, extremely angry in her heart, thinking, "Said it," and then left just like that. Suddenly, she felt this retreating figure was somewhat familiar. She unconsciously stood there, dazed. Suddenly, the princess exclaimed in alarm, "Wait!" Baekmujin also quickly stopped. The protagonist glanced back. The princess stammered, "Baron." Baekmujin asked with curiosity, "Is something wrong?" The princess stared at him, many vague thoughts flashing in her mind. She thought, "What was that just now? Did I see wrongly? But why do I feel so familiar with this person's every gesture and action?" After thinking for a moment, she suddenly realized and exclaimed, "I understand. I will give you a lucky charm." Baekmujin's jaw dropped, and cold sweat began to pour down. He silently rejoiced, thinking, "I was just kidding just now. Is she really going to do it?" Thinking this, he said, "It's okay. I don't want to force you either. So, princess, you don't have to." He hadn't finished speaking when the princess grabbed his collar and pulled him forcefully. Extremely quickly and decisively, the princess forcibly kissed Baekmujin. This happened too suddenly, momentarily stunning the protagonist, who stood there dazed. That passionate kiss still hadn't stopped. His first kiss yet, it felt incredibly familiar. After kissing, she panted heavily, pulled her hood tightly over her head, a little embarrassed by her actions, and timidly said, "Is that enough?" Without waiting for Baekmujin to recover, she hurriedly ran away. It's unknown how long it took before Baekmujin let out a startled, "Ah." He turned around, smiling. The pendant on his chest was also glowing at this moment. The power of love is truly miraculous. Through space and time, that love is still incredibly strong. On this side, the princess ran ahead. Her face flushed red, not daring to look back, and said, "I wish you a safe journey, sir." Scene changed to the north, where snow fell white all year round. Lively chatter echoed. "I heard a new lord is coming here, right?" "That's right. It seems he just saved the king's life." "Really? Then that must be why he was granted a title and territory. I heard he's strong enough to deal with over 100 enemies at once. His swordsmanship is also very excellent." Another person continued, "So there really exists such a multi-talented person in this world. Only someone like that could catch the eye of Duke Aras, right?" Just then, someone slammed the table, interrupting their conversation. He shouted furiously, "It's all just rumors. Just wait and see. He'll also get too scared and run back to the capital." Scene changed to the next day in the North Sea. Snow continued to fall, blanketing everything. The cold pierced to the bone. Suddenly, in that cold space, two people were leaning against each other, as if guarding against something. One said, "Damn it! Where did all those dragons go?" The long-haired person standing beside him suddenly gasped in horror, speechless. It seemed he had just seen something very frightening. As quick as lightning, a monster rushed forward from the front. Its size and strength seemed incredibly disparate. Seeing his comrade hit by the monster, the other person shouted, "Rue Song!" and fearfully rushed over. "Are you okay, Rue?" He thought, "Damn it, just because of a few eggs we have to suffer like this." On this side, the one called Rui lay painfully contorted on the cold ice. Her eyes then widened in extreme fear because that beast was now behind the young man. It opened its mouth and snapped at him. Rui struggled to shout, "Kill it! It's behind you!" The young man who was running was startled when he heard this and turned his head. The beast's wide mouth had just snapped at him. He could only helplessly, with no way to avoid it, think, "It's over. I'm done for." Just then, a figure appeared out of nowhere, lunging to attack the beast. A single sword strike, giving it no chance, easily killed the beast in an instant. The two, seeing the beast die right in front of them, couldn't believe it, their mouths agape, stunned on the spot. Perhaps having lived in this remote place for so long, they had never encountered anyone so domineering. The one who came to their rescue was none other than Baekmujin. He smiled and said, "Are you all okay?" Rui, her eyes filled with gratitude mixed with a little curiosity, timidly replied, "Thank you for helping us, sir." Baekmujin casually continued, "It's nothing. This is just what a lord should do." Hearing this, they were so shocked they almost jumped, thinking a lord, but the protagonist didn't bother to explain or say anything more, just smiled, turned his face and left, saying, "See you later," leaving behind a lot of confusion and doubt in their hearts. "Hey, sir." But Baekmujin had already circulated his energy and flown far away. Rue stood there dazed, muttering to himself, "He left so quickly. He's already out of sight." But surprisingly, the young man with him widened his eyes in astonishment and exclaimed, "Huh! Damn it! The dragon eggs are also gone." A moment later, when the sun had risen high, emitting faint warm rays in the distance, but still unable to dispel the coldness of this place. Nearby was a rather sturdily built palace. Inside, Baekmujin was also present. He sat on the Baron's chair, majestic and imposing, and said, "Oh dear, why is it so deserted? Doesn't anyone know I'm taking office today?" In front of Baek Mujin, only one guard stood. Other than that, there wasn't a single soul. The guard spoke, "I'm sorry, Lord. I will send letters to the villagers next, sir." Baek Mujin replied wearily, "Forget it, no need. Even if you call them, they won't come." He said that, but in his heart the protagonist felt a little disappointed, thinking, "People call this Caroline's debut. Right now I know why lords keep getting driven away." Then he smiled smugly. "But it's okay. I have a way." Scene changed to a few days later. The door of a certain house was opened. A man with bulging eyes exclaimed in horror, "Impossible. What is this? Who on earth? Who? Could it be the new lord who just arrived?" In front of him, each and every one of them had bruised and battered faces covered in wounds. They replied chokingly, "Yes, sir. He's very strong." Another person said, "I don't know what method he used, but when he touched me, I couldn't move anymore. He's also very ruthless. It hurt so much I couldn't bear it." While the man with bulging eyes was angrily and furiously contemplating something, he suddenly received an urgent notification. "He's appeared, sir." A man rushed in and said, "He's in the village square, sir." The one with bulging eyes couldn't believe his ears and thought, "Damn it, he came all the way here." Thinking this, he said, "All right, I'll be right there." As soon as he stepped out, sounds of admiration rang out. "Oh, finally, the first warrior of Karelon has deigned to show his face. I believe in you. Deal with him." At this moment, Baek Mujin was also present. He glanced around and thought, so many people have gathered here. Suddenly, from the crowd, a voice full of admiration rang out. "Oh, it's you, sir." Seeing the somewhat familiar appearance, the protagonist was still suspicious and said, You are?" Just then, a stern voice rang out. "Rui Wee." Hearing this sound, the girl fearfully turned her face and said, "Well." The man with bulging eyes approached and said, "Why are you here, child?" Rue immediately replied, "I saw a lot of people gathering, so I came to take a look, sir." He continued, "It's just the new lord who has arrived." Hearing this, the girl was so shocked, she almost jumped, recalling the words he had said that day. "It's nothing, just what a new lord should do." Thinking this, the girl said with admiration, "Ah, so that's how it is." Then Rui Wai turned to her father and said, "The other day I told you about the person who saved me when I was in danger, father." After learning this truth, he thought to himself, "Oh, I didn't expect the one who saved my daughter to be the lord. This is troublesome." And not only did he defeat ordinary dragons, but also ice dragons. Even the warriors of Karelon would find it difficult to do such a thing. He rubbed his head and thought, "I didn't expect a Karelon warrior like me to have to acknowledge someone like him, but I can't back down either." Thinking this, he extended his hand and said, "It's an honor to meet you. I am MC, the first warrior of Karelon." Baek Mujin coldly and sharply replied, "Your humble servant. I am the new lord of Karelon." He continued, "I've also heard about you, sir. I heard you beat up the villagers. Is that right?" Baek Mujin casually replied, "Not at all. I just punished a few troublemakers." "What about it? Do you also want to do the same thing as them?" He stammered in reply, "No, but I have a proposal." Baek Mujin, hearing him say that, was a little curious. "A proposal?" He replied, "This place is a cold place, so the people living here often drink a strong liquor to withstand the cold. Would you like to have a drink with me, sir?" Baek Mujin, without a moment's hesitation or delay, casually replied, "Oh, all right." This surprised him quite a bit. He continued, "Please think about it carefully before accepting, sir. This isn't ordinary liquor, Baek Mujin replied excitedly, "I know. But if I win, you all must acknowledge me as the lord and obey me." The surrounding crowd buzzed with discussion. A drinking contest with Mac. Is that guy insane? Are they really going to have a drinking contest? Of course, Mac will blah blah blah. The discussions rang out. At this moment, Mac firmly continued, "All right, I understand. A promise is a promise." Immediately after, both of them stepped inside the tavern. They sat opposite each other, face to face. On the table, there were many bottles of liquor lined up, covering the entire surface. Mac then spoke, "If you want to back out now, it's still not too late, sir." Baek Mujin smiled confidently and replied, "As a lord, how can I back out? Let's begin." Mac, quite amused, grinned widely, then coldly said, "All right, don't regret it, sir." A few hours later, both of them quickly started drinking. Mac drank until his eyes were completely blurred. However, Baek Mujin was completely unaffected, extremely relaxed. His daughter, seeing her father staggering and dazed, anxiously ran over to support him, her face full of alarm. Another person called out in confusion, "Mac, are you okay? You're about to collapse." Hearing this, he thought to himself, "Am I about to collapse? How can the best drinker in Karelon like me collapse? How can I possibly be drunk? Then his daughter anxiously advised, "Father, don't drink anymore." Mac, regaining his composure, struggled to reply. I'm not drunk yet," he thought to himself. "Impossible, I can't lose." Thinking this, he picked up his wine cup again and said boldly, "Another cup." Baek Mujin immediately poured him another cup and said, "I think you shouldn't push yourself too hard." But when it was MX's turn to pour wine for Baek Mujin, he was already dizzy and Baek Mujin's face blurred from one into two full of illusion. The protagonist, seeing the wine splashing out, said annoyedly, "Hey, pour the wine properly." His words jolted him back to reality. Mac clutched his head in confusion, thinking, "Damn it, is this guy still sober?" The protagonist continued, "Well, do you give up yet?" Mac, although his eyes were completely drunk, he stubbornly refused to yield and replied, "No need, continue." "All right, if you like, I'll indulge you to the end." Immediately after, Mac picked up his wine cup and gulped it down in one go, looking very forced. Seeing this scene, everyone felt worried about his health, their faces covered in sweat, full of confusion. But contrary to Mac, Baek Mujin drank very gently and relaxedly. This was nothing to him. His drinking capacity was simply off the charts. Everyone was amazed, their eyes widening. They themselves couldn't believe that a slender person could drink so much. Just then, the protagonist finished drinking and placed his wine cup on the table decisively. Mac still refused to give up and thought, "Perhaps it's because I haven't drunk in a long time, that's why." Suddenly, Baek Mujin was a little surprised. Then a pleased smile appeared as he exclaimed, "It seems I've won." Because in truth, Mac was so drunk that he was no longer conscious, couldn't sit still, and had rolled onto the ground fast asleep, oblivious to everything. MC's underlings were also extremely astonished. They themselves couldn't believe why Mac, the best drinker in the region, could also get so thoroughly drunk. Baek Mujin stood up and said confidently, "Now, all of you here must come to my city in 5 days. A promise is a promise, okay?" Scene changed to 5 days later in Baek Mujin's city. As promised to Baek Mujin, those present at the competition, Tian were present in the city. Baek Mujin teased further, "Honestly, I thought you guys wouldn't come. It seems you also know how to keep a promise." Mac replied clearly, "Isn't that obvious?" But before he had a chance to finish, Baek Mujin interrupted. "I know. Don't say any more. You all probably already know who I am, so I'll get straight to the main point. I'll give you 10 days to prepare. During that time, prepare to migrate." Hearing the protagonist say that each and every one of them was so shocked they couldn't utter a word. In their hearts, they thought, "Oh no, here we go. Migrate, but where to? And why do we have to go?" But looking at everyone's frightened expressions, the protagonist sensed their confusion and added, Why aren't you answering?" Mac's daughter asked with confusion. "You mean all of us have to live in the city, sir?" Faced with this clueless question, the protagonist sighed and replied, "How could that be? So many people, how can they all live in the city?" Another voice rang out. "But you said migrate, sir," Baek Mujin replied wearily. "Who told you to live here? We will migrate to the north." But after hearing to the north, they were even more terrified. Fear gripped their bodies, making their mouths hang open, unable to close. Baek Mujin casually said, "For the past 5 days, I've explored everywhere. In the north, there's a large area, enough for more than 10,000 people to live. From now on, everyone must not live separately like this, but must live in the same place," Mac asked in confusion. "But there are ice monsters living there," the protagonist exclaimed in surprise. "Ice monsters?" He recalled the monsters he had encountered in the north and described them. "Are they those big-headed creatures with large bodies that can walk on 2 legs?" Mac's face was covered in sweat as he said, "Oh, you've met them, sir." The protagonist smiled and reassured everyone. "Not only met them, I've cleared them all out." This made them even more terrified and silently admired the person in front of them. Such terrifying monsters, and Baek Mujin says he can eliminate them just like that. The protagonist calmly said, "What's there to be afraid of?" In short, don't worry, just prepare to migrate because the place I discovered is extremely interesting. Immediately after, he shouted loudly, "Dismissed!" Everyone also left in great confusion. The sound of whispering and discussion echoed endlessly. After everyone left, Baek Mujin stretched his arms out, looking extremely tired, and exclaimed, "Tisk, tisk, now!" Before he could finish speaking, a voice rang out, attracting Baek Mujin's attention. "Greetings, Lord." The protagonist turned his face surprised and asked, You guys are..." Immediately, the girl clapped her hands to her chest and hurriedly introduced herself. "I am Rue. It was urgent at that time, so I hadn't had a chance to greet you, sir." The young man standing beside her continued. "And I am." The protagonist quickly recognized them and replied cheerfully, I know why you're looking for me. I was just about to call you guys." Jack, hearing this, exclaimed in surprise. "Is that so?" Baek Mujin added. "Yes, but it's nothing serious. Don't worry. First, just follow me." Immediately after, Baek Mujin led both of them to another room nearby. Outside, snow continued to fall, blanketing the entire sky. Rui and Jet's eyes suddenly filled with extreme fear, their mouths agape as they shouted loudly, "Ah, baby ice dragons." What caught their eyes were adorable baby dragons curled up and sleeping soundly, looking extremely friendly and cute. Immediately, Rue changed her attitude and shouted furiously, "As expected! At that time, the Lord stole these eggs and left. Do you know how hard we worked to find them?" Hearing this, Baek Mujin burst out laughing and replied, "Huh, have you forgotten who saved you that day, Seeing they were caught, although a little resentful, they didn't dare to make a peep. Just as they were about to say something, Baek Mujin hurriedly raised his hand to stop them. "Anyway, you guys take them and go." Rui Y exclaimed in surprise. "Take them and go, sir." Baek Mujin casually replied, "Initially, I intended to raise them, but they eat too much and are too noisy. And lately, I've been very busy." Hearing the protagonist, they must be imagining the scene of the dragons bustling about, shouting loudly in his ear, feed me, take me out to play, feed me, take me out to play, feed me." Although in reality, dragons don't know how to speak human language, folks. Rui spoke up. "But even if we take them, we can't do anything because ice dragons will consider the first person they see after hatching as their mother. Could it be that Baek Mujin will become the compassionate mother of these ice dragons?" Just thinking about it made Baek Mujin feel so annoyed that he gritted his teeth in discomfort. He clutched his head in anguish and helplessly lamented, "So I have to continue raising these troublesome things." Jet immediately retorted, "What are you saying, sir? Ice dragons are troublesome." Rue gently sat down, lightly touched the dragon's smooth fur, caressed it, and said softly, "Ice dragons are different from ordinary dragons. They are both large and strong. If we can tame them, it will be very beneficial." Jet continued, "If I can tame them, I can comfortably fly to Tistong." Hearing this, Baek Mujin immediately asked with curiosity, "Tenston, where is that?" Rui explained, "It's the second capital of the Ger Kingdom, about 1,000 kilometers west of Karelun. That place is famous for lacking nothing." Baek Mujin exclaimed in surprise, "Oh, it can fly that far?" "Yes, they can fly there in about 1 or 2 hours, Jet replied. At this moment, the protagonist thought to himself, "Wait a minute, if so, then how do I tame them?" Faced with his sudden change of mind, Duai was quite surprised and exclaimed, "Have you changed your mind, sir?" "Yes, I just had an idea." A few days later, the residents of Karelun began to migrate according to Baek Mujin's instructions. Everyone leisurely followed behind the protagonist. Suddenly, Sabina ran frantically after Baek Mujin and reported, "Master, it seems everyone is tired." Hearing Sabina, he glanced back and thought, "It's only been 3 days and they're already tired. Moreover, there are still a few who don't trust me. But we're almost there. They'll change their minds when we get there." Thinking this, Baek Mujin shouted loudly, "Everyone listen. We're almost there. I know you're tired, but please try a little harder." Someone, after hearing this, turned to the person next to him and said, "But we don't even know where we're going." His companion also said in confusion, "Yes, I wonder if any monsters will appear here." But these words of theirs unintentionally reached the protagonist's ears. He furiously slammed his sword into the cold ice and then shouted madly, "I told you I chased them all away. Are you the mighty warriors of Karelun or not?" Hearing this, they felt ashamed in their hearts, and no one dared to make another peep. Some, who were still unconvinced, could only clench their fists and endure. On this side, Baek Mujin, after speaking, also furiously turned his face and continued to advance. Sabina, a little worried, called out, "Master." In response, her voice was somewhat resentful. "Forget it. Just let them be. You'll know when you get there." But looking at Baek Mujin's captivatingly beautiful smile made the young girl Sabina's heart skip a beat for a few seconds, completely smitten. A moment later, they finally reached the location Baek Mujin had mentioned. Although exhausted, their eyes suddenly filled with extreme shock at the scenery of this place. The boy Leo excitedly exclaimed, "Master, is this the place you were talking about?" Baek Mujin casually replied, "Yes, it was very difficult for me to find this place. It seems you all like it very much, huh?" The protagonist glanced around, looking at everyone's admiring gazes, and silently rejoiced, thinking the others seem to be doing better too. "It seems I've somewhat convinced them. I never expected there to be a place like this in Karelun." Thinking this, Baek Mujin spoke clearly. "Everyone listen. This place was originally the hiding place of the elves, but from now on, it will become the place where we live. So we also have to give it a name, right?" Hearing this, everyone was excited and replied in unison, "Yes, that's right." He raised his hand to his chin, deep in thought. "Let's see. The place I lived before was the North Sea Ice Palace. So this place is..." The protagonist's eyes lit up. "That's right. That's it. From now on, this place will be called White Castle." Rui Y looked at her father and smiled. Perhaps they also liked this name. Now just wait for the rest of the people and the dragons to arrive. Suddenly, the protagonist sensed something unusual in this place. A strange sound came from behind. Immediately, he turned his face and exclaimed, "This sound, it's unmistakable. Lightning!" The ear-piercing cry of a small dragon after being struck by lightning echoed even more tragically. Then it fainted and rolled onto the ground, its life or death still uncertain. On this side, the one controlling the lightning also felt strange and exclaimed, "Why are there dragons here?" Suddenly, Baek Mujin, with his superhuman ability, quickly found the location of the lightning user, and from behind snarled, "Who are you? Why is a mage here?" The words had barely left his lips when the protagonist, as fast as a lightning bolt, rushed close to him. When he realized and turned his face, Baek Mujin had already approached, staring at him with ice-cold, sharp eyes. Then, without hesitation, Baek Mujin extended 2 fingers emanating a murderous aura and lunged forward. Instantly, he pinned him tightly to the ice wall behind, unable to move or resist. The protagonist furiously squeezed his hand tightly around his neck, his oppressive aura radiating around him with immense power. The surrounding earth and rocks were gradually cracking and deforming. It was so powerful that his glasses were even flung off and he gasped in horror. Baek Mujin stared at him with ice-cold, sharp eyes and shouted, "Let me ask you a second time, who on earth are you?" Just like that, he continuously questioned, his voice filled with a murderous aura, as if wanting to strip bare the soul of the person opposite him. "Why did you attack my W's?" Under the pressure, as heavy as Mount Tai, he cursed inwardly. "Damn it! Am I paralyzed? Why can't I even move a finger?" Baek Mujin looked him over, his voice half joking, half murderous. "Your body can be mute, that's fine. But your mouth isn't pointed. I didn't blind you, did I? Why are you as quiet as a clam? Speak up. Answer me quickly, and you might still have a chance to redeem yourself." Sweat poured down his face as if he had just swum 100 meters in a pot of boiling chicken. He was so frightened he trembled and shouted, "All right, I'll talk. I'll talk right now. I am Count Jerome von Keren." Hearing that, Baek Mujin raised his eyebrows slightly, a look of surprise passing like a gust of wind. "A count? You're a noble. I'm a baronet. So, wait a minute. I'm 1 rank higher than you, huh?" The opponent stared blankly. "Baronet? Could it be you're the one who saved His Majesty and was granted land and title? The one who's been causing a storm lately?" Baek Mujin frowned. "Oh, you know me. But wait." His hand was still gripping his collar tightly, showing no sign of letting go. His eyes scanned him as if searching for a buried secret. "It seems you're the former lord who was deposed for incompetence, right?" He didn't answer, but his expression, as if stripped bare, made Baek Mujin understand that he had hit the nail on the head. He stammered, I have my own difficulties." The protagonist sneered. "What do your difficulties have to do with me? And hey, you've been talking like a superior, lecturing a subordinate this whole time. Wake up, old man. You're being a bit disrespectful." He cowered and stammered, Aren't we the same?" Baek Mujin didn't answer. He just gave him a look cold enough to freeze the entire Siberian winter. The opponent trembled like a leaf and wailed, "Why did I say something wrong?" The protagonist burst out laughing, a laugh as cold as shattering ice. "Wrong as wrong can be. Equals friends in your dreams. How are you and I the same? Stop daydreaming. You failed to fulfill your duties as a lord, letting the people starve and the land fall into ruin. Being deposed was the right thing." As he spoke, he squeezed his face without mercy, making him yelp as if doused with water. Then the protagonist brought his face close, his voice even colder. "You dare to compare yourself to me? Dream on. Even if you sleep for another 10 lifetimes, you probably still won't reach my level. But... Before he could finish, Baek Mujin cut him off. "But what? This time I'll spare you. Next time, don't blame me for not warning you." After speaking, he let him go and then lightly tapped a few acupoints, his voice as cold as a deathly sharp blade. "I've released your acupoints. If you want to run, run. If you want to crawl, crawl. But remember, if you mess up, I'll send you off myself, no need for a farewell." He slowly got up, panting as if he had just survived a nightmare. Baek Mujin glared, warning him further. "Remember my words. 1 misstep and all that's left will be to pick up your bones." Yes, sir. Rest assured that will absolutely not happen." He trembled violently. Baek Mujin pointed at the W's lying panting on the ground. "Good. Now heal, my pets. The work is still long. Don't even dream of lying around sunbathing and resting." He stared blankly. Do what, sir?" Baek Mujin gave a sweet smile, but to him that smile was no different from a death sentence. "I have a keen eye. 1 look and I know you're useful. You know how to use magic, right? Then what are you waiting for?" After speaking, he turned and walked away, leaving him standing there like a statue, wanting to say something but unable to. That figure had already disappeared behind the cold, rocky mountains. The entire sky seemed to collapse before his eyes. He sat down on the ground, tears streaming down like a river. "Damn it! Why do I feel like I've run into the final boss? Scene changed to the next morning in the cave. A panicked voice rang out. What? What did you just send to the capital, sir? Baek Mujin, as calm as if he had just ordered a pizza, said, What's there to be surprised about? I just sent a letter to the king. He stared blankly. The problem isn't sending a letter, but why did you ask for tax exemption, sir? Baek Mujin sighed and said as if stating the obvious. The people in this region have suffered so much that they don't even have tears left to cry. If I don't help them, who will? He took off his glasses, his voice full of helplessness. But the other nobles will surely object vehemently. Baek Mujin looked out of the cave entrance, his voice as still as a lake surface, but hiding a storm. Then let me see who dares to oppose me. Because from the nobles' standpoint, that's clearly unfair. If the king agrees to exempt taxes for one region, a whole bunch of others will take the opportunity to stir up trouble and demand the same. Everyone will cling to the reason our situation is just as miserable. And from there, they can even threaten the king. If you don't exempt us, don't even think about getting another silver coin from us. Even if the king favors Baek Mujin, it would be difficult to comply. Politics isn't a child's game. Hearing that, Baek Mujin fell into deep thought. In his mind, the image of a familiar face suddenly appeared. The main culprit who had pushed him to this point. Indeed, the problem lies with those nobles, and the one pulling the strings behind the scenes is him. His eyes suddenly became as sharp as a knife. Then he said, his voice calm, but hiding an undercurrent. All right, then for now we won't ask for tax exemption anymore. Hearing this, the noble in front of him breathed a sigh of relief as if he had just escaped the Grim Reaper's scythe. Baek Mujin suddenly waved his hand, signaling him to come closer. When he bowed his head close, he tilted his head slightly and whispered a plan. The content of the conversation was kept absolutely secret, but looking at the opponent's astonished expression, it was clear something extraordinary was afoot. What is that even possible? Baek Mujin sneered. What's not possible? As long as we play by the rules, how we win doesn't matter, so it should be possible. Good. Then get ready. The fun is just beginning. And so an emergency meeting was convened immediately after. The people in the base hearing the news buzzed like a disturbed beehive. What's going on, heavens? Not sure, but it doesn't seem simple. Amidst the chaotic atmosphere, Baek Mujin's voice rang out with authority. Everyone assemble immediately. The space fell into a frightening silence. Everyone stood at attention, not daring to breathe heavily. Rui Wai said in surprise, I've brought my weapons as you instructed, sir, but what on earth is so serious that you've called all of us? Baek Mujin took a step forward, his eyes cold, but full of ki. Now I will make it clear. From this moment on, we will hunt ice dragons. Our main target. Below the platform, whispers erupted like popcorn. Ice dragon eggs. That's no different from suicide dragon eggs, not chicken eggs. How can we get them? But Baek Mujin remained extremely calm, even smiling faintly. To ensure safety, each team will consist of 30 people. The lists have already been assigned. The mission is simple, get as many eggs as possible. He raised a piece of paper high and then concluded, the team that brings back the most eggs will be rewarded with 100 gold coins. In an instant, the entire base seemed to explode. Some almost fainted on the spot. Some stammered, 100 gold coins. My entire life savings probably isn't even that much. Oh my God. Just by bringing back dragon eggs, we can become rich and change our lives. One person stepped forward, half doubting, half excited. Are you serious, sir? Is that reward really 100 gold coins? Baek Mujin replied, his voice as sharp as a dagger. Am I a man of two words? Warriors of Karelon, listen. Can you do it? No one answered immediately. They turned to look at each other, their eyes meeting amidst confusion and burning determination. In each person's mind, a battle of thoughts raged. Dragon eggs are truly dangerous, but 100 gold coins. 100 gold coin. Just a second later, the entire base seemed to ignite with spirit. They shouted in unison, Please assign us the mission, sir. The shout was so loud that if any dragons were nearby, they would probably be scared enough to crawl back into their eggs for safety. Baek Mujin stood high above, looking at the heroic scene, his eyes narrowed slightly in calculation. He didn't turn his head, just spoke lightly. Jerome. The curly-haired man standing behind him flinched slightly. Hearing his master call his name, he immediately bowed. For the next 10 days, you will closely follow each team. Pay special attention to those with outstanding potential. I want to personally select a few people for a private matter. Jerome frowned, a question immediately popping up in his mind. A private matter? Could it be, are you planning to form a knightly order, sir? He hadn't finished his sentence when Baek Mujin's gaze shot towards him as cold as a winter blade, almost saying outright, You're too smart, kid. Jerome, seeing this, felt a pang of guilt and hurriedly corrected himself. Yes. Did I say something wrong, sir? But in Baek Mujin's mind, he silently nodded. This guy is more perceptive than I thought. Not bad. After a few seconds of silence, he slowly spoke. You guessed right. As a lord, not having a knightly order for my household is like having a name without substance. I need an elite army, one that can follow me to the ends of the earth. Jerome nodded slightly, his eyes showing he somewhat understood his intentions. He lowered his voice and said, "Oh, so that's it. I heard that Duke Icarus's knightly order is currently the strongest on the continent. Even the royal knightly order has to be wary when encountering them." Baek Mujin sneered, his smile unclear whether it was arrogant or challenging. "Then let them be strong for now, because that number one position will belong to us." In his heart, a thought echoed like an engraved oath. "This time I will create an army that surpasses even the snow ice squad of the past, an army that nothing can break, because I cannot lose her again." His eyes suddenly softened, but then immediately became as sharp as a sword drawn from its sheath. "Now everyone move out!" The responding shouts thundered the ground, seeming to shake. The people began to divide into teams, some sharpening swords, others checking armor, their spirits soaring as if they were going to fight S-rank monsters, not sneakily steal eggs. And so the great ice dragon egg-stealing journey officially began. The sky thundered the ground. Shook giant ice dragons with silver scales and teeth as sharp as sickles were roaring madly. Their icy breath blew away the mist, making the air as thick as if one had just stepped into a giant freezer. Baek Mujin stood on the top of a slope, arms crossed, his cloak fluttering in the wind, his eyes sparkling like a true anime protagonist. He smiled Hyeom-hok. "Yes, this is the moment I've been waiting for." Around him was a chaotic and heroic scene. The whistling wind, melting ice, roaring dragons, and tactical shouts echoing through the sky. "Grab its tail tight." Okay, its tail is off. Each group of warriors operated like a perfect machine. Attacks were launched decisively, as precise as programmed. Punches like thunder slashes that cut the wind, the satisfying swish a joy to hear. Clearly, with a reward, people naturally become more diligent and stronger. Money truly is a universal motivator. Team 2 released the net 1, 2, 3. A giant net tens of meters long, woven from magic steel wires, as strong as faith in a CR yet to confess, spread out. The unlucky ice dragon was tightly bound, its mouth agape, roaring as if to shout, "Hey, can I have my freedom, please?" From above, Baek Mujin stroked his chin, his eyes shining brightly like a military genius who had just opened Excel to view his strategy. "This one is pretty good, isn't it?" Jerome nodded and replied, "Yes, sir. This one takes several days to hunt, yet they coordinate with each other so smoothly." In Jerome's mind, a complex stream of thought flowed like a recipe for spaghetti, yet full of admiration. "I didn't expect the young lord to secretly plan to steal ice dragon eggs and tame them from a young age. If everything goes as planned, we can use dragons to transport goods across the continent, reaping huge profits from their bone scales and horns." Just thinking about it smells strongly of money. Just as he was calculating economics, Baek Mujin's voice rang out like the opening drum of a 1,000-blood campaign. "Everyone, keep it up. Whoever brings back the most dragon eggs, this time I will reward handsomely triple the amount." The warriors clinging to the dragon's backs paused for a beat, then their eyes lit up as if they had just heard they won the lottery. Their combat power surged as if they had just activated SSS rank buffs. Jerome whispered, his eyes still fixed on the battlefield. Unbelievable. The warriors of Carolyn. To think they would be so united one day. It's truly a miracle. Before him was a vivid picture of an uneven battle. Small warriors charged at giant dragons, fearless, unyielding. Every slash, every blow, all like a dance of courage. Jerome watched, goosebumps rising. Indeed, nothing is impossible. One tree doesn't make a forest, but 30 trees gathered together. It becomes a whole primeval forest. The protagonist sneered, a smile appearing as if the final boss had just opened a treasure chest. Pretty good. Who was it just now that blew off that dragon's head? Jerome, without thinking, pointed like a thunder god, striking his target. It's him down there, Shu-Ah. Oh, Shu-At. He even has a nickname. The name itself smells of a domineering supporting character. Baek Mujin raised an eyebrow, a glint of interest in his eyes. Seems quite famous, huh? Jerome nodded emphatically. Yes, sir. He's a hero who specializes in taking from the rich and giving to the poor. He gives rice to the hungry and cakes to children like a muscular, cold-faced version of Robin Hood. Oh, how did someone like that end up here? He was framed and caught before. Then, poof! He escaped from prison and wandered to this land. Baek Mujin frowned, his expression like someone who had just unwrapped a snack packet containing a dragon egg. Wandered, huh? In his heart, he thought, he seems quite friendly with everyone. He doesn't look like a thief or robber either. Who knows, he might be a treasure among the wanderers. He nodded, signaling Jerome. Check carefully for me. Besides, Swat, are there any other fugitives mixed in here? Who knows, we might find some useful talents. Finding a diamond while clearing out trash is a big win. Jerome, hearing this, his face contorted, sweat dripping like rain in July. Ah, damn it, my work is piling up like I can't even breathe. Scene changed to evening inside Baek Mujin's base. After a day of dragon hunting that felt like 18 hours of plowing, everyone returned exhausted, but their hearts were as joyful as New Year's. The protagonist stepped onto a high platform, his voice booming like a village loudspeaker. Everyone has worked hard. Thanks to your tenacity, recklessness, and limitless fighting spirit, we've finally gathered enough dragon eggs. He paused for a beat, then smiled. As promised, the rewards will be given out right now. Boom. The atmosphere exploded as if a bomb had just crashed the server. The crowd below jumped and cheered like crazy. Long live the Lord. But then from the crowd, a hand rose politely like an elementary school student asking to speak. Excuse me, Lord. Baek Mujin turned and smiled like an easygoing homeroom teacher. What is it? Mac seriously scratched his head and asked directly without beating around the bush. Lord, what do you intend to do with those dragon eggs? Baek Mujin nodded and clapped his hands, his eyes shining brightly like stage lights. Good question. Everyone must be curious about this. Well, today I will reveal this earth-shattering secret to you all. He stepped forward, his head held high, his demeanor like a CEO about to announce a new product. As you know, when dragons first hatch, they will default to the first creature they see as their mother. Yes, mother. They even call out, Mommy. No kidding. And now I am the national mother of these dragons. Below. Huh. So we're all their mothers. From here I will tame them in the most ancient way with affection and food. My plan is to use these tamed dragons as a means of transporting goods from high mountains to valleys, from the coast to the royal palace. Ice dragons will be our winged express delivery team with speed and the ability to breathe cold air to keep food fresh. He raised his hand to the sky as if creating a logo for a new delivery company. What should we name it? Ice Dragon Express Fast Delivery. Deep cold, loving prices. The people below. After hearing this, were moved to tears, their eyes sparkling as if they had just heard a declaration of independence. Some almost shed tears. The Lord is truly a genius of our time. Mac's jaw dropped, his eyes wide as if he were about to faint. Goods. Goods. What do you mean, sir? Baek Mujin, still as calm as if telling a story about raising a dog, said, many things. For example, animal hides. But the long-term goal, the main product, will be the hides of ice sprites. Hearing that, the entire base felt as if someone had just thrown a bucket of ice water in their faces. Gasps, trembling eyes, faces turning pale, as if poisoned. Ice sprites. Are you planning to send us into the mouths of monsters? Sir, no, I haven't even gotten married yet. The atmosphere suddenly became chaotic, like a collapsing market, discussions exploding like New Year's fireworks. But just as things were about to turn into a small-scale riot, Baek Mujin raised his hand, his voice stern, but not lacking in authority. Silence order for me. The entire atmosphere immediately felt as if a mute button had been pressed. All eyes were fixed on him. He took a step forward, his eyes flashing. Who was it that single-handedly annihilated the entire pack of ice sprites that used to lurk around W Castle? The Lord, sir! The crowd shouted in unison like a choir competing in a singing contest. Baek Mujin nodded and patted his chest. That's right. It was me. And you think I would let you become lunch for those ice dragons? Then who would deliver the goods for me, huh? Everyone looked at each other, still seeming a little worried, but starting to have doubts. A soldier whispered softly, whatever you say, following the Lord to battle really does bring both salary and fortune. That's right. Not like that time when we were forced to fight goblins and didn't even have enough food. Baek Mujin, holding back a laugh, said, ha. Well, feeling more confident now. The soldiers looked at each other and then unconsciously grinned broadly. Their fear gradually melted away like snow under the early morning sun. Yes, sir, they shouted like thunder. Good. He nodded and waved his hand, preparing to announce the rewards. Then I will officially bestow the rewards. Master, master. A panicked shout echoed from afar. A boy ran in his face, ashen, panting, as if he had just run a 10-lap marathon around a stadium. Sorry, sir, but it's serious. Baek Mujin frowned, his voice dropping low like rumbling thunder heralding a storm. Serious? It's Sister Sabina. She's not going to make it. The words were like a thunderbolt shattering the lively atmosphere. Baek Mujin froze, his eyes vacant for a moment, wide open, his lips trembling slightly. What Sabina? Scene changed deep in the snow-covered forest. The cold wind bit like knives. Two children shivered beside a girl lying unconscious, her body trembling, her face flushed red as if burning. Sister put this on too, Lak Fi said, draping a cloak over Sabina, his voice choked with sobs as if about to break. Sabina shivered violently, her lips faintly moving as she replied in a weak voice, Thank you, Lak Fi. Sister, don't sleep, Master. Master is coming. Hold on. Okay. Above, snowflakes fell gently cold as if counting down to something about to happen. As soon as he heard the grave news, Baek Mujin transformed into a lightning bolt, rushing off as if his backside were on fire. In a flash, he was at the scene, a cold snow-covered forest, where Sabina lay unconscious in the arms of the two children. His voice boomed like thunder tearing through the snowy curtain. What happened? The two children turned abruptly, their faces beaming with joy, as if they had just seen Buddha descend to earth. Master. Baek Mujin approached, his face stern. He bent down and said softly, "Let me see." Just one look, and his expression immediately darkened, his eyes flashing with unease. As soon as his hand touched Sabina's forehead, he could feel her body temperature was so high it could fry an egg. Sabina shivered, her pale lips faintly murmuring, "Master, so cold." Baek Mujin clenched his fists, thinking, "The child's condition is more serious than I thought. Fiery heat has invaded her organs. This isn't a common cold." He looked up, his deep voice carrying a faint, murderous aura. "What happened? Tell me clearly, word for word." Lak Fi took a breath, his voice trembling but trying to speak coherently. When we were helping Uncle Ospaner find a place to build a dragon pen, we discovered a field full of strange flowers. The book said they were rare glass flowers. Sister Sabina said, "Hey kids, each of you take some back. Master will surely like them." Leo interjected, his voice choked. "But before we could reach the village, she suddenly collapsed. At first we thought she was tired. Who knew it would be this serious?" Both looked at Baek Mujin, their eyes filled with fear and pleading. "Master, please save her." Baek Mujin was silent for a moment, then unexpectedly patted Lak Fi's head and Leo's shoulder, his eyes softening like snow melting under the sun. "That won't happen. You two calm down. Sabina will be fine." He carefully picked up the flower in Sabina's hand. His eyes narrowed as soon as he saw it, and he muttered, "Glass flower. What the hell is that?" A second later, his eyes flashed as if struck by lightning. "Impossible. This is snow. Ice flower, an extremely rare flower that only appears in the Central Plains and the North Sea, where the climate is eternally icy." Baek Mujin was shaken. Why did this thing appear here? What else does this land hide? His expression became increasingly grave, but he still said nothing. The children looked at each other, their faces tense as if watching a horror movie at the part where the villain's identity is revealed. Leo finally couldn't bear it anymore. Bowed his head, knelt, his voice choked as if about to cry. "Master, can you save Sister Sabina? Please." Baek Mujin let out a sigh, his eyes regaining their sword-like sharpness. "That's right. Saving her is the most important thing right now." He stood up, his hand tightly clutching the precious flower, his eyes burning with an unquenchable flame. "I will keep this flower. Leo, carry Sabina and follow me. We must go to the training ground immediately." Without thinking, Leo picked her up and rushed like the wind into the training ground, so fast that just looking at him, one could hear the whistling wind. Stepping inside, a clean bed was already waiting. Baek Mujin waved his sleeve and gave a short order. "Leo, put Sabina on the bed." Leo, panting like an ox, nodded emphatically. "Yes, sir. Gently now. You've also worked hard, Leo. Now I will treat Sabina's injuries. All of you get out. Without my order, if any of you dare to show your face in here, prepare your own will. Understood?" "Yes, sir," they all shouted in unison like a clap of thunder. Before closing the door, Lak Fi lingered stealthily, peeking his head through the crack, his eyes tearful, his voice on the verge of crying. "Master, please save her." Baek Mujin smiled, his voice softening slightly. "Don't worry. Leave it to me." The door slammed shut. In the room, only Baek Mujin and Sabina, lying still on the bed, remained. He bent down and gently stroked the petals of the flower in his hand, his eyes flashing with a cold sharpness. Snow ice flower, or what mortals call glass. Something that here is considered just a mobile ice cube. But in the North Sea, my old home, its fruit is a divine-grade spiritual medicine. One pill could trade for the entire world's fortune. He chuckled softly, a dangerous glint in the depths of his eyes. Of course, if a weak person is exposed to this cold chi, they wouldn't even have time to scream before turning into an ice block. But unfortunately for you, I belong to the group that plays with cold chi like it's ice cream. It's understandable that Sabina fainted. She's simply too weak to withstand the ice power. After a period of circulating his power, the cold chi permeated her. Sabina's complexion gradually changed from deathly pale to rosy. Baek Mujin softly called out, his deep voice like a whisper in her ear. "Sabina, wake up." Just a second later, Sabina's long eyelashes fluttered. She slowly opened her eyes, her voice a whisper. "Master." He smiled, his voice softening. "Yes, it's me. Now that you're awake, sit up and continue circulating your power. Don't be lazy." Sabina obediently listened. "Yes, sir." She closed her eyes tightly, exerting all her strength to feel the surrounding chi. Instantly, powerful streams of chi gushed out like a tornado, enveloping her entire body, pressing down on her so much that she just wanted to roll over and cry. Baek Mujin stood there, nodding like a wise old man. "Pretty good. The cold chi in her body is starting to condense into internal power." A moment later, pop. Sabina suddenly opened her eyes wide as if electrocuted, then rolled onto the ground, panting like a fish out of water. But no, she had fallen into a very deep sleep. The only problem was that she slept with her eyes wide open, as if inviting ghosts to visit. Baek Mujin scratched his head and chuckled wryly. This type of sleeping with eyes open, I guess I'll have to do her a favor and help her close them. Her internal power has increased quite a bit more than I expected. If it continues to progress like this, I'll reach my goal faster than expected. He flicked his sleeve, turned, and left his figure disappearing behind the door. A moment later, Sabina groggily woke up, looked around in alarm. Master. But the room was empty, only the lingering cold key remained. She blinked. Finally, she had the best sleep of her life. Meanwhile, at W Castle, after the ice dragon eggs were stolen, an earth-shattering revolution broke out. Baek Mujin, without prior notice or consultation, personally reviewed the list Jerome submitted and then roared his order. Immediately form an elite knightly order for me, the title Jiak. Standing before hundreds of expectant eyes, Baek Mujin waved his hand. My aura fills the heavens. I don't like beating around the bush. From today, I will shatter you all and reforge you from scratch. Only the strongest will remain. Who's good? Who's a chicken? What's the need for lengthy exams? Just hit them once and you'll know. Among them, the most prominent was Shuat, personally appointed as the Corps' commander to lead the troops into battle. And it didn't stop there. Schools, hospitals, taverns, restaurants, and shops sprouted up like mushrooms after a rain. Baek Mujin straightened everything out. Job positions, adjusting individual abilities thoroughly, exploiting the useless, making them disappear. W Castle, from a nearly moldy castle, had transformed into a sanctuary for the strong under the hands of a crazed yet heroic Baek Mujin. At this moment, Baek Mujin was sitting cross-legged leisurely, listening to Jerome's report. His eyes scanned the thick ledger and then casually concluded, Since we've decided to reorganize, the personnel also need to be reshuffled for the household. Jerome, hearing this, nodded emphatically, also feeling it was absolutely right. According to the plan, Osborne, with a head as thick as watery porridge, was directly assigned to the W Castle security force to suit the feng shui. As for Jerome, who had both intelligence and knew how to use his brain, he was appointed as Baek Mujin's special assistant. He narrowed his eyes and smiled faintly at Osborne's head. Letting him do security is less dangerous than keeping him by my side. Jerome, from now on, you are my assistant. Jerome's eyes widened, almost biting his tongue. But what about teaching magic to the children? Before he could finish complaining, Baek Mujin coldly cut him off. You don't like it? Jerome froze like a statue, cold sweat breaking out under the mountain-like pressure of his boss's gaze. He could only force a smile. My head bowed low. Your subordinate will do his best, sir. Baek Mujin sneered, a sly smile on his face. That's more like it. As for Jerome, he clutched his heart and silently wailed, hoo 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 hoo. That reward money should have been mine. And it didn't stop there. Baek Mujin also aggressively established 2 brand new armed organizations. He lifted his teacup, took a sip, and then waved his hand as if it were a matter as small as a fingernail. No need to think much. First, just set up those 2 teams. Yes, sir. The guard team was assigned the task of guarding the entire White Castle and patrolling the entire Karelen region, gathering all stray civilians. As for the captain of the guard, there was no need to look far. Baek Mujin personally took on that role, to be sure. The second team, the W Knightly Order, was a bit different. One person rushed forward enthusiastically, his chest puffed out like a barrel, his eyes shining brightly. Please entrust it to me, Jet confidently demanded to take responsibility. However, Baek Mujin's face contorted slightly. Well, it's good that you're so enthusiastic, but can you even ride any of them? Because to be honest, they didn't even have a single decent adult W to ride at the moment. All they had were newly hatched eggs as small as wild ducks. If an adult rode them, their backs would probably break. According to the plan, after determining the official number of 1 knights, the remaining W eggs would be distributed to the Karelen merchant caravan. Merchants would also ride Ws flying around, looking cool and convenient for transcontinental trade, promising a future that was both wealthy and prestigious. Meanwhile, for absolute secrecy, Baek Mujin stealthily approached Du Wei and whispered like telling a ghost story. The fact that I'm the temporary leader must be kept secret, so you be the leader in my place for a while. Okay? Rui Wei, without blinking, without hesitation, without frowning, replied immediately. Yes, as quickly as signing a contract to sell one's soul. A few days later, Jerome, drenched in sweat, panting, carried 2 huge packages, his face contorted as if he had eaten chili. Late again. This is not good. I'll probably have to ask for less work. I wonder what kind of stupid game I'll be ordered to play today. Muttering, he sighed and dragged himself to open the door of the room. As soon as he stepped in, he bowed his head respectfully and said, Excuse my rudeness, I apologize for being late. Mac, sitting nearby, saw this and smiled reassuringly. We've only just begun. Sit down. Jerome breathed a sigh of relief and was about to pull up a chair when his gaze suddenly froze. His whole body stiffened as if someone had broken his neck. What caught his eye at this moment was Sabina in flesh and blood, sitting squarely at the table, her face bright as if there had never been a parting, a stark contrast to her near-death image not long ago. Now looking at the girl, it was as if she had just jumped out of an energy drink commercial. Jerome's eyes widened, his pupils dilated, his mind in turmoil. Wasn't she just on the verge of meeting her ancestors the other day? Why is she sitting here now, her face so rosy? Heavens. Just then, Baek Mujin lazily spoke, his voice drawn out. Sit down quickly. Don't stand there like a lamp post. Ah, yes. Jerome stammered, flustered, and pulled up a chair. Baek Mujin glanced over and waved his hand. Osborne, you continue. Osborne immediately stood up, clasped his hands respectfully. Yes, sir. The newly established security force hasn't been around for long, yet there are already more than 20 people locked up in prison. At this point, he cleared his throat and continued. Among them, more than half are fugitives. Before he could finish speaking, Max shot up, his face flushed red as if about to burst into flames. Lord, those are all incorrigible criminals. I propose that we arrest them all, gag them and lock them up to avoid further trouble. Below, several people also chimed in. That's right. But Baek Mujin just smiled coldly, his eyes as sharp as a newly sharpened blade. Oh, then let me arrest you first, okay? The atmosphere immediately froze. He slowly stood up and casually added a powerful sideways blow. You are the main instigator of the rebellion, driving away a talented lord like Jerome for such a ridiculous reason. Max's face turned pale, and he shouted as if trying to salvage the situation. What ridiculous reason? That was a legitimate act of self-defense to protect Karalu's autonomy from those nobles. Baek Mujin snorted coldly, his contemptuous voice wanting to freeze the entire room. Oh, so your uprising was for justice, but Swat's resistance became thievery, huh? Mac, hearing this, felt as if doused with cold water. He awkwardly bowed his head, flustered, and forced a smile. I'm sorry, sir. Swat just sneered and casually replied, Mr. Mac, I hope you will never forget that those shallow actions caused suffering to the people. Then he sat down and calmly concluded, We're in a meeting now. Let's deal with old matters later. Baek Mujin crossed his arms, looked at the crowd in front of him and sighed inwardly. This guy really is short-brained to the core. When thinking this, he waved his hand indifferently and asked, Does anyone else have any other opinions? At this moment, Sabina timidly raised her hand, her large round eyes sparkling brightly. May I offer a suggestion, sir? Baek Mujin smiled encouragingly. Speak. Sabina took a deep breath, her voice serious. If, as Mr. Mac said, public opinion in the village will surely be even more hostile towards the fugitives. Baek Mujin nodded. Yes, that's right. Sabina continued, her eyes shining with intelligence. And from today, the ice sprite hunt will begin. Baek Mujin frowned slightly. What does that have to do with anything? Sabina smiled faintly and casually dropped a bombshell. If so, why don't we let those imprisoned in the dungeon be the vanguard to attack the ice sprites, sir? Boom! A single sentence like a thunderbolt striking on a clear day stunned the entire meeting room. All eyes turned to Sabina. Some widened their eyes, some gasped, some almost dropped their jaws to the floor. No one, absolutely. No one had ever thought of such a crazy idea. Baek Mujin burst out laughing. Ha! Ha! His eyes filled with excitement. Sabina, that's pretty good. Continue, very quickly after the hunt began. In a climate where it was cold all year round and snow fell white, a giant foot stomped down hard. It opened its mouth, tilted its face to the sky, and roared. The roar that burst from its throat was like rumbling thunder tearing through the air, echoing throughout the land, causing birds to scatter in flight. The ground shook in waves, as if angry on behalf of the heavens. Its breath billowed out black smoke, and its eyes were as red as two burning coals, wild and full of hatred. That was not a roar, but a declaration of war against the whole world. Hiding in a tree, a man with a white cloth wrapped around his face said, Course, Commander. It seems they've escaped from us. And just as Sabina had suggested, the fugitives were the first to start the battle of hunting ice monsters. The man with the white cloth wrapped around his face was a first-grade fugitive Lenin. Behind him was Corps Commander Swat, and finally the one holding a large axe was a first-grade fugitive Gregor. Swat focused his observation and replied, Perhaps. Now maintain distance, then attack the enemy when there's an opportunity. As he finished speaking, the other two replied in unison, Yes, sir. Meanwhile, in front, the ice monster was still quite vigilant, its eyes darting around. It tilted left, then right, searching. Seizing the opportunity, the two fugitives immediately gathered momentum and lunged forward, attacking from behind. Sharp slashes rained down, striking its back, their mouths roaring, Die attack, brothers! The beast struck, groaned in pain, its bloodshot eyes full of resentment. It immediately glanced back to see who dared to be so bold. Someone shouted, Be careful, Lenin. It's waiting for a chance to counterattack. And as expected, the beast swung the weapon in its hand, rotating 180 degrees, and attacked them back. Lenin, standing nearby, widened his eyes in astonishment. It seemed too late to dodge. Behind that, rushed forward like a rocket. Duck quickly, Lenin. He raised his sharp weapon high, aiming at the beast. The sharp blade flashed. In an instant, Swat had saved Lenin from a fatal blow. If Swat had been just a second slower, Lenin's life would probably have returned to dust. The slash also injured the beast considerably. Red blood splattered like rain along with its wheezing groans of pain. Not stopping there, all three rushed forward in unison to attack the monster. A rain of swords poured down each person's eyes, filled with determination. They were determined to return victorious to impress the people. Back at yesterday's meeting, Sabina had then explained, "So what if we let those fugitive criminals be the cannon fodder to attack the ice sprites?" Beck Mujin, hearing the girl's idea, was quite satisfied and smiled. Below, another person spoke up. "So let them be on the front lines to fight. That method seems a bit ruthless." Sabina continued, "If Master goes with them, this matter is still too humane compared to locking them in prison where they could be sentenced to death at any time, because Master has the strength and he will find a way to defeat the ice sprites. After that, Master might choose those with strength and let them join the army." Returning to reality after a difficult struggle, the ice sprite was finally killed, its giant body lying amidst the fugitives. Everyone was quite happy with their achievement. Besides that, there were words of concern. Sue outside. "Lenin, are you okay?" The young man smiled confidently and replied, "It was a bit dangerous that time, but I'm still fine." Faced with his arrogance, Gregor interrupted, "Oh, stop bragging. You almost lost your life that time. You were lucky." Lenin chuckled. "Well, it was a bit dangerous, but let's forget about that. The real battle has just begun. All right, just sit there and brag. If we get our sentences reduced after this, we need to have a celebration." Lenin also hoped so, but our chances of winning this battle aren't high. But do you remember how we met at the tavern before?" "Of course. How could I forget? This battle is the most dangerous I've felt since coming to this land, observing the battle from afar." Beck Mujin smiled and thought, "It seems I calculated correctly this time, so this battle will have a good outcome." But they couldn't have imagined that an ice sprite was secretly observing its deadly gaze, fixed on Beck Mujin, hiding behind a tree, its face becoming terrifyingly hideous. Its blank white eyes stood out against its dark bronze-like skin. Meanwhile, elsewhere, another group was also hunting ice sprites. One person pointed to the distance and said, "Over there." As he finished speaking, a teammate got ready to advance, but he immediately stopped him. "Don't be hasty. Let's see first. If there are monsters, we'll drive them towards the traps. If we can do that, it will be safer when we fight." The sky also gradually became warmer. The sun had risen high, emitting dazzling rays. "You understand the plan too, right? All right, rest assured. I'm preparing to shoot arrows to lure them now." As he finished speaking, arrows were shot out, whoosh, whoosh, flying straight ahead and then embedding themselves in a tree trunk. Leaves rustled down. On this side, they focused their observation, but still didn't see any other movement besides the whistling wind and falling leaves. Seeing this, one person stepped forward to scout the situation, muttering, "It seems there's no movement, just some falling leaves. Let me go over there and retrieve the arrows and observe the situation." But suddenly, from behind the tree, a giant hand emerged, followed by a large, cold-eyed figure. It was none other than an ice sprite. They stood stunned, unable to believe their eyes anymore. "What the hell?" On Beck Mujin's side, things seemed quite peaceful. He calmly said, "The people seem to no longer be afraid of the ice sprites, as they were at the beginning." Samuel said enthusiastically, "It's all thanks to your wise leadership that day." Jerome, standing beside him, continued, "Of course that's right. Now everyone is full of fighting spirit, but everything still needs to be done according to plan. Tell everyone to maintain their positions, ready to fight when ordered." "Yes, understood. But besides ice sprites and ice dragons, it seems there are still other monsters in this region, right?" "Yes, there are still many things that need to be summarized and investigated." "Have the local people said or suggested anything about dealing with these monster incidents?" "It's true they've said some things, but we've controlled the situation quite well since coming to this region. But currently there's one matter." Beck Mujin, hearing this, immediately asked, "Samuel, what's happening here now?" He replied, "It seems something big has happened, sir." "What? What is it?" "It seems a pack of monsters moving in a group has appeared." Beck Mujin asked in surprise. "Monsters in a pack?" "Yes, the 2 soldiers who were with me studying the ecosystem here were attacked by monsters." "Are you sure it was an ice sprite?" "Yes, but there were also some other species." "All right, tell me more clearly." That one seemed to be a leader. Its whole body was covered in white fur and was extremely large. It was about 3 meters tall, a kind of ice sprite but larger and stronger. Suddenly, Beck Mujin sensed cold auras rushing towards him. He said, "Stop hunting for now." Jerome asked in confusion. Are you going to deal with it personally, sir? The protagonist just casually replied. Yes, you guys move back to your original positions and set up camp there for me. Then alone, he arrogantly and recklessly advanced. Baek Mujin's figure moved so fast that the naked eye couldn't see it. What was seen was only a streak of light in the air. As he walked, he thought, if what that guy said is true, then it seems I know that monster. I've heard about it from Edmund before. He said that magic swordsman spoke as if he would become a snowman. Then Baek Mujin used his mind's eye to focus and scan the surrounding area. His eyes flashed searching. With his skill, he could clearly see everything for several hundred miles. Passing through the forest, he moved very quickly and discovered his target. It was a giant beast with sharp teeth and claws. As soon as he discovered the target, Baek Mujin rushed towards it. In the icy cold, Baek Mujin's figure moved as fast as a rocket, approaching the beast's position so gently that it didn't even notice before he slashed it, causing excruciating pain. Cold sweat poured down like rain. It raised its arm and struggled only to be immediately slashed in the arm again. Red blood had just spurted out when it already started to freeze. But it still wasn't fazed and swung its arm wildly in a counterattack. The protagonist thought, "It's big, strong, and tall, but too fast. But meeting me like this, your number is up." The beast looked at Baek Mujin, cold sweat breaking out, trembling violently. It opened its mouth and roared loudly, full of threat. Standing before it, the size difference between the two was too great. It seemed this is indeed a snowman, Baek Mujin thought with confusion. You who were just roaring and swallowing iron are now as timid as a frightened stray cat. The way it reacts is as if it can accurately know how high my martial arts skills are. That look in its eyes, that beastly look in its eyes has said it all. The monster suddenly cowered, not daring to make a sound. Fear enveloped its body. Baek Mujin was still lost in thought. I'm very curious to fight you, but I can't let someone who harms the villagers live. Thinking this, he snarled, "Be reincarnated as a human in your next life." As he finished speaking, he stomped his foot hard on the ground, gathering momentum, and shot up. In a flash, Baek Mujin was standing, towering right above it. The monster tilted its head up and looked terrified. Surprised when Baek Mujin's sword had just flashed down, a powerful ethereal light shot out around it. Baek Mujin, seeing this scene, also froze in surprise, or rather was quite shocked. After that light dissipated, the monster also disappeared. What remained was shattered earth and rocks and Baek Mujin's dazed face. It suddenly glowed, then disappeared along with that energy right before I could hit it. What magic did it use? As if realizing something, he asked in confusion. Wait, green light. It's green light. When I first came to this world, I heard Lak Fi say that mages of level 5 or higher can use space travel magic called instant teleportation, and most mages remain at level 1 or 2. So level 5 is probably like being between the transformation realm and the profound realm in cultivation. And yet it's something no different from a human with white fur covering its entire body can use such extraordinary magic. Well, even if it's space travel, there's no reason I can't catch up. As he finished speaking, Baek Mujin circulated his chi and shot off like an arrow, both fast and thundering, shaking the surrounding trees and plants as if they were bowing to that power. Very quickly, Baek Mujin caught up with that huge thing, hiding like a leper. However, I can still feel its presence nearby. It seems that even with instant teleportation, it couldn't go far. Probably about 1.5 km/h. Then he scanned his surroundings. It's definitely around here somewhere. After a short while, Baek Mujin discovered a nearby cave. Standing at the entrance, he could see it was a rather large and deep cave. But he was even more surprised when he went deeper inside, his eyes widening in astonishment. This cave was not just a dark and damp cave, but also surpassed his imagination. A giant library of books appeared right before his eyes. The two sides of the cave entrance were designed like an underground building, resembling a natural snowfield existing in the middle of a field. Suddenly, his eyes were attracted by something. He froze, stunned. What caught Baek Mujin's eye was the large figure of an ice sprite hiding behind a wall. And it must be said this dude's hiding skills were absolute crap. With such a massive body, how could he try to hide so obviously? So ridiculous. Baek Mujin, not at all afraid, spoke. What is this thing? If you're going to hide, at least hide properly. Hey, you there. Answer quickly. Are you deaf? I'm talking to you. The giant was startled, looked over, saw Baek Mujin standing imposingly there, and trembled violently, stammering, Don't come here. I'm not planning to eat you. So calm down. Are you human? Baek Mujin said softly. Only then did the giant calm down and speak. No, I am the great warrior of Horus Konon. Baek Mujin, hearing this, was very surprised. The great warrior of Horus Konon. As if to answer the question in Baek Mujin's mind, from behind someone's figure faintly approached and said, That means, Jetty, your lordship. Following the sound, Baek Mujin turned his face and saw Jerome standing imposingly there. He was quite surprised. Oh, You found this place? You're pretty good. Jerome, her expression unchanging, replied, Thank you, Ma. Because recently there have been signs of destruction. Besides you, sir, no one has that kind of destructive power. Your destructive power, sir, is like a natural disaster. However, why is a legendary race like the Jedi told by people from generation to generation in this library? Beck Mujin continued. I was just about to ask it that. Then he turned to look at the giant and questioned, Hey you. You said your name is Kondon, right? Where do you come from, huh? Looking at Beck Mujin's stern face, it was so scared that cold sweat broke out, and it couldn't utter a word. The protagonist became even more annoyed and shouted, Damn it! Are you planning to run away again? Speak quickly. I'm not a patient person. As he spoke, he unleashed his power, his imposing aura radiating out, making the giant's hair stand on end, its jaw dropping helpless, with 2 streams of tears welling up. It stammered in reply, That, I come from Ga. The protagonist asked in surprise, Ga? Is that your village? He immediately nodded repeatedly. So there must have been many living there before, right? Yes. While Beck Mujin was questioning the giant, Jerome quietly observed everything around. Her eyes suddenly darkened. It seemed she knew everything but wanted Beck Mujin to investigate it himself. She thought to herself, forget it. On this side, Beck Mujin was still interrogating. Then why did you kill my people, huh? His eyes became colder than ever, enunciating each word. Depending on your answer, but before Beck Mujin could finish, he hurriedly interrupted, I didn't kill them. I am the great warrior of Huris. My staff wouldn't kill people. Beck Mujin was half believing, half doubting. Really? Kong Dan, seeing his name being miscalled, although somewhat scared, still tried to correct him. I am Kondon. Seeing the somewhat tense atmosphere, Jerome interrupted. That Jedi is right, your lordship. As I see it, most of them were only injured, not dead. Hearing Jerome, Beck Mujin recalled the words of the fugitives. It's true, it was a bit tense. They weren't dead, but seriously injured, and are being treated at the district hospital. Thinking back, no one said anyone died, but their expressions made it seem like someone really died. Kondon spoke up to clarify. Yes. At that time, Kondon chased them out because those humans entered the sacred land and attacked. First, I would never attack first, ever. So that means we were the ones who trespassed on the Jeti tribe's territory while hunting ice sprites, huh? Beck Mujin muttered. It seems so, Jerome said. In his heart, he thought perhaps Edmund gave wrong information about the Jeti. Thinking this, Beck Mujin told Jerome, Go heal Kon. Yes, your lordship, and its name is Kondon, sir. Immediately after Jerome used magic to heal Kondon's wounds. Suddenly, Beck Mujin exclaimed, Hey, Kondon! He jumped in surprise. Why, what's wrong, sir? Beck Mujin suddenly changed his tune from cold to crazily cheerful, burst out laughing and said, Tell me where your sacred land is. I will definitely tell my people so they won't trespass anymore. Kon. Don's eyes lit up, sparkling like a child's. Really? Yes. But there's one thing. Why have you been talking to me so informally this whole time, huh? Don't you know how to use honorifics? He looked bewildered. Honorifics? What the hell are honorifics? Looking at his innocent expression, Beck Mujin could only sigh. Forget it. You can't even talk normally, so what's the point of talking about using honorifics? At the same time, Jerome had also finished healing its wounds. Beck Mujin turned and left. All right then, let's go back. But now the giant was surprisingly calm. He couldn't believe that not only had he survived, but also had his wounds healed. Do good people like this still exist in the world? Jerome said softly. Your lordship. But what is it? The thing is, I have a request. Scene changed to a place very, very far away. Voices echoed. Henry, how long has it been since you promised? About 3 months, your lordship Edmund. 3 months already. This might also be where Beck Mujin once lived, Edmund said seriously. Henry. Yes, your lordship Edmund. What are you going to say this time? He painfully clutched his head, tore his hair, and wailed loudly. Our merchant guild is finished. Henry was so shocked he almost jumped. You're saying the Joel merchant caravan is about to collapse, sir. The magic swordsman promised me that if I just held on for another 3 months, he would send someone to help me. After that, he just disappeared from this world. Oh, heavens. Why am I so miserable? Henry was still thinking it was something serious. So, you're that upset about it? He quickly sat down and comforted him. Calm down, Mr. Edmund. He's not the type to break his promises. Suddenly, a strong wind howled. Both of them looked up at the sky in confusion. What entered their eyes was a giant flying dragon rushing towards them at incredible speed. Both of them were so scared, they almost wet their pants before they even understood what was happening. But the dragon didn't harm them at all, and surprisingly landed right in front of them. Both of them fell backward in fear. From the dragon's back, a voice rang out. "Hello, Mr. Edmund," Edmund asked in confusion. This voice. When he saw the owner of the voice more clearly, his eyes seemed unable to believe what he was seeing. Sabina, the girl with a radiant smile, exclaimed, "The goods have arrived." Edmund went from fear to extreme joy and exclaimed, "It's ice, it's really ice. I knew he could do it. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful." Henry, standing behind, was still in shock. Ice dragon. What the hell is happening? A monster that can wipe out an entire squad is being used for delivery. What the hell is going on? Oh my god. So domineering. Sabina suddenly remembered something and exclaimed, "Ah, that's right. Master told me to ask you to deliver this to that person." Edmund, momentarily unable to process, "That person who?" Then he burst out laughing slyly. "Ah, that person, hehe." So a transaction took place successfully. It was truly surprising that something that seemed so ridiculously impossible had been made a reality by Baek Mujin. Scene changed to Princess Soon's castle. She was sitting sipping a hot cup of tea, her eyes looking dazed by the voice that spoke, "Princess Sond, thank you for accepting my invitation. You are becoming more beautiful every day." Hill replied politely, "You flatter me, Mr. Justin." He was a little disappointed. Still the same as always? She doesn't even bother to smile. It's okay. A game that's too easy isn't fun. Just wait. I'll make you smile. While Justin was lost in his own self-satisfied thought, suddenly a princess's maidservant entered and whispered something to her. Just after hearing it, the princess couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "What a letter from Baronet Blizzard!" Her shout attracted Justin's attention. He shot up and slammed his hand on the table. Perhaps he was just as surprised and also resentful. Hearing this, the princess immediately left without hesitation. "The letter is in your study, sir." "Really? Then let's go quickly," Justin said resentfully. "Wait, are you leaving already?" "I came here so early just to see you, princess." She just casually replied, "I heard your training schedule is packed for the whole day. Don't waste your time here anymore. Go back." After speaking, she turned and left immediately. Justin at this point was extremely furious, veins bulging all over his face. As for the princess, she left without looking back, without hesitation, and just returned to her room, leaving Justin standing there silently furious, his face dark. He slammed his hand on the table as if to vent his anger, gritting out each word. "Blizzard. That bastard. I hate you." It was still Baek Mujin, no one else, the one who had beaten him up beautifully and was also his love rival. At this moment, he was truly furious. Meanwhile, the princess had returned to her room. Immediately, she picked up the letter and read it. To Princess Sud. How have you been lately? I've been quite lucky recently, thanks to your lucky charm. The northern part of the empire is a livable place with many sparkling crystal caves and hot springs. We have built a castle named White Castle within it. It's a very beautiful place. But there's one very bad thing: your absence makes this place feel emptier and more desolate than ever. I'm sending you a small gift. I hope you like it. Upon opening the gift, the princess's eyes suddenly lit up with surprise. It was a snow ice flower, sparkling like crystal. At the end of the letter, the protagonist didn't forget to emphasize, "I will send you more letters later from Baronet Bai, who misses you very much." After reading the letter, she was extremely moved, her chest pounding. She even had to ask herself, why am I like this? Why do I keep thinking about him like this? Could this be the feeling of love? Holding the flower in her hand, she just kept looking at it. It's truly beautiful. Immediately after, she stood up abruptly. I need to check something. I have to meet him in person. Meanwhile, on Baek Mujin's side, he was constantly training day and night to strengthen his physique. But the flower, instead of being absorbed by his body like Sabina's, was immediately shattered by his power. After this failure, Baek Mujin could only laugh wryly. I'm only good at destroying things. Wanting to do things like this is really difficult. Suddenly, footsteps approached along with a hurried voice. Your lordship, Jerome, what's wrong that you're in such a hurry? She said in alarm. You need to come to the office right now. It's very urgent. It's a once-in-a-thousand-years matter. Baek Mujin, not at all hurried, calmly replied. All right, don't rush. If you work this hastily, it's good. Hurry up now. Upon arriving at the office, Baek Mujin was extremely shocked and shouted, What is it? The library of an ancient mage, and then? So what if it's superficial? Jerome asked with confusion. Your reaction is too superficial, sir. This is a great discovery. It's a cultural heritage from ancient times. It's the key to restoring magic. It's an important stepping stone to surpassing the fifth circle. Hearing this, Baek Mujin was truly attracted. His eyes filled with surprise. Baek Mujin, without even turning his face, said, I feel something. Jerome said, It's at your lower back, sir. Seeing she was discovered, she intentionally used the hem of her robe to cover it, flustered. It's nothing, master. I didn't report it because I thought it was too useless. But the more she hid it, the more Baek Mujin wanted to see what was inside. Immediately, he used his spiritual chi to draw the small bag from Jerome's side. Her face turned pale with fear, while Baek Mujin, on the contrary, was quite excited. But after opening it, the thing inside made him freeze for 5 seconds. Isn't this just a rock? Jerome explained. It's not that I wanted to hide it. It's a stone full of condensed mana. We call it a mana stone. Baek Mujin asked in surprise. A mana stone? Then what were you planning to do with it that you had to hide it so carefully? She helplessly confessed. Well, actually, I'm currently a 4th circle mage. I'm close to reaching the 5th circle, but I've been stuck at that wall for a while. I thought using a mana stone could help. I understand. Surpassing a level like that isn't easy. I understand your feeling. Thank you, sir, if that's the case. But that's why it's even more unacceptable. The more Jerome heard, the more shocked she became. She retorted angrily. Isn't improving my abilities beneficial to Carolyn? Please, sir, approve it. But Baek Mujin just casually said, I refuse. With a mana stone, you can overcome that wall. But then, what will you do? Will you go find another mana stone? That's not important when stepping into a new stage. What's important is the effort to gain true understanding. Growth comes from time and effort. There are no shortcuts. Jerome, hearing this, was furious, her hands clenched tightly, trembling with anger. But just a few seconds later, she slowly relaxed her body, thinking, although it's frustrating, he's right. I reached the 4th circle through my own efforts. Master also once said that learning magic cannot be rushed. Even if it's slow, as you take each step, you will understand. That is magic. Thinking this, she muttered to herself, at some point I had forgotten his teachings without even realizing it. On Baek Mujin's side, looking at Jerome's retreating figure, he thought, I was planning to beat you up if you didn't understand. But luckily, it seems you understood. Thinking this, he asked, so what else can this stone do? Jerome replied, it can be used in most types of magic. It's extremely versatile. For example, amplifying mana, using it as a shield or communication magic. Hearing this, Baek Mujin hurriedly interrupted. Wait, communication. You said a mana stone can do that. You don't need a mage to communicate. Jerome, again as casual as if it were a normal thing and nothing serious, said, yes, that's right, sir. As long as I just deploy a communication magic on the mana stone, even someone without mana can still use it to communicate. And this thing is top quality. With a mana stone of this quality, we can communicate from the D3 Empire to the sea. Baek Mujin, on the contrary, was extremely excited. Jerome, do you know what's the most important thing in governing a country? Well, I'm not sure, the protagonist continued. It's the speed of information. Whoever gathers and distributes information faster will change the game. As he finished speaking, he immediately ordered, Jerome, turn all mana stones into communication stones immediately. Yes, your lordship. After obtaining the mana stones that could help exchange information from afar, Baek Mujin quickly put them to the test. The stone in his hand suddenly emitted a sound. Hello? Hello, Jet here. Can you hear me, sir? Baek Mujin joyfully said, yes, I hear you, very loud and clear. Oh, the sound on this side is also clear. He laughed with delight. The sound from the mana stone continued to emit. How far have you gone? Jet replied. Yes, I'm currently about 10 kilometers above the ground from Snow Tower. I can hear very clearly. No problem, sir. Suddenly, Jerome's voice stammered from behind. Your lordship, but Baek Mujin didn't pay much attention. He was still very focused and exclaimed, good. The signal is very stable. The communication test was successful. From now on, we will use these communication stones to keep in touch. Jet on the other side, hearing this, exclaimed, that's wonderful. While everyone was rejoicing at this great invention, Jerome stood behind, sweating with worry. At this moment, the protagonist ordered, enough. Let's go back. From the mana stone, a 3-lap somersault sound was heard. Suddenly, the mana stone vibrated violently. Baek Mujin sternly reminded, intensify training when Jack returns. At this point, Jerome could no longer stand by and watch. He shouted in alarm, your lordship, if this continues, you'll destroy the communication device. Just then, a voice rang out, Master. The ice dragon troop led by Sabina has returned. She landed safely, jumped down from the ice dragon's back, and said cheerfully, Master, I'm back. Baek Mujin was overjoyed, as if he had struck gold. Good. Come in. Perhaps seeing Sabina return, he also felt relieved that his love letter had been delivered to his muse. Immediately after, a meeting was held. The key figures were summoned by Baek Mujin. The entire room was dead silent, not a single sound, attentively watching Baek Mujin read a letter. His expression doesn't look too good, Sabala asked worriedly. Is there a problem with Mr. Edmund's letter, sir? Baek Mujin, while reading, replied, No, I asked Edmund to send me information about the political situation of neighboring countries, and he described it in great detail. He thought to himself, but the name AOS mentioned in the letter. For some reason it makes me feel strange. Thinking this, he asked, Does anyone here know about AOS? The atmosphere suddenly fell silent. It seemed no one knew this unfamiliar name. After a moment, Shuat spoke up. I haven't seen him with my own eyes, so it might not be accurate, but according to rumors, he is a great sword master. Hearing this, each and every one of them's expression changed, sweat breaking out their mouths agape in fear. Excited whispers rang out. What? A great swordmaster? Isn't a great swordmaster a level higher than a swordmaster? There shouldn't be anyone on this continent who has surpassed the swordmaster level. Suddenly, Baek Mujin raised his hand to his mouth, signaling. Shh! Silence! Immediately, everyone calmed down, no one making another sound. In Baek Mujin's mind, he silently calculated. Great swordmaster, that's how they call the harmonious realm in the Central Plains. Someone in the harmonious realm can condense sword ki. I was disappointed when I heard that only about 10 people here have achieved sword ki. Life without a worthy opponent is truly boring. But thinking about the appearance of a master of the harmonious realm, even if he's not my opponent, I still want to meet him the strongest in this world. Suddenly, Swat continued. And perhaps it's not important, but I heard about something unusual. Unusual. Strangely, when he uses swordsmanship, there's a faint scent of plum blossoms. Baek Mujin was stunned. Plum blossoms, swordsmanship can release the scent of plum blossoms.